Welcome to the September 18th, 2024 joint meeting of the Finance and Curriculum Subcommittees of the Brookline School Committee. We will start with approval of the minutes. The first item on the agenda is Finance Subcommittee approval of August 21st, 2024 meeting minutes. Can I get a motion from a finance person? Thank you, Val. Do I have a second? I'm going to second it. Val,
Right.
how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Okay, Carolyn, how do you vote? You're not going off mute. I'll take Sarah. Sarah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay. Carolyn, I will come back to you, I guess, and you can let us know how you voted when you get the chance to come off mute. Go ahead, Suzanne, for your part.
Okay, and I have a curriculum.
Oh, wait, Carolyn,
Carolyn, go ahead.
Thanks. I was not able to unmute or put my video on.
Sorry about that.
But yes.
Okay, great.
Okay, and I have minutes from I believe it's August 20th. Is that right, Betsy?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, for our curriculum subcommittee, I will move the minutes. Do I have a second? I'll just do it that way. Thank you, Jesse. Jesse, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Stephen, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
Great.
So we're done with that part.
Yep, now we're gonna go into without further ado, into the school improvement plans. And Suzanne, you said you wanted to make some comments before we start?
Well, this is a couple of things, just so people, the audience knows, the public knows that we actually aren't discussing particular items and action items. I'm thinking in particular the high school English, ninth grade English, we will come back to that at a later date and have a thorough discussion of that. The other thing, if it's possible, I know they've done a wonderful job on the slides. However, we won't get through everybody in 15 minutes each if everybody goes through the slide deck. So if it's possible, what we really want to know, I think, is what is unique to your school that we should know about, that you're working on, and what is the budget implications from that, or your plan in general. So you really don't have to go through all the slides, because I know they're beautiful. We have those, and most of us have looked at them already, and we will look at them again. Certainly you can reference them if that will help you with your presentation, but if you go through every slide, we're not going to get through everybody in 15 minutes each, and I really want to respect your time. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Okay. Okay.
I think it does. I don't think we want to throw people completely off of whatever they were envisioning, right? I mean, they knew they had 15 minutes. So if you think you can do it and just stick to your time, really is the end of the story, is the bottom line, right? And maybe we'll give people a 5-minute warning so that they know to get to the point if they haven't, because everyone has 15 minutes. Do we have an order? I know, Betsy, you were coordinating an order. I just don't know what it is.
Yes, we do have a sign-up list. Brian is first, Brian Denizio, and then next will be Donna Finnegan after Brian.
Wonderful. Okay, Brian, you're up.
Hello. Thank you, everybody, for having me. Good afternoon, gang. If it is okay with you, I promise I will stick to my time, but can I use my slides just because that's how I'm anchoring myself?
Yes. Sorry, I didn't mean to totally contradict Suzanne, but I was like, these poor people have planned something and she's telling them not to.
It's my bad. I'm sorry. Ignore what I said. Do your 15.
Ryan, just one quick question.
My bad.
Go ahead, Jesse.
Yeah, for those of us that don't know how the people match up with the schools, if Betsy,
Yes. Okay. Principal
Betsy's gonna give
Denizio
off
of
yeah,
Lincoln,
even,
right? Brian,
well,
you're at
even
Lincoln.
when
Okay.
Betsy mentions a name, if she could say what school they're from, then we can
Yep.
pull up.
I'm sure it'll be in the slides too, but yes, we'll get
I know,
there.
but you can't search through all the slides to find it. So I'm saying.
I see.
I'll make sure I do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Brian, go ahead.
Thank you. So yeah, Brian Denizio. I'm the principal of Lincoln School. I'm going to go ahead and share screen, and I promise, like I said, that I will move expeditiously through my slides. So thank you. All right. So we can know it's Lincoln because the grayed out photo in the back, that's my front circle. You can see my clock tower over there at the top. First, I want to say a huge thank you to my school council membership. Christopher Blesson, Sarah J., and Sandra Wiesman. They are folks who have long experience at Lincoln and/or long experience working in schools and understanding how schools work. And their input, both as parents and as folks with connections to education, has been hugely valuable. Deeply appreciative too of my teacher reps, Courtney O'Leary, Donald Petrie, Gretchen Thompson, and Alejandra Traub. We have like a good representation of grade levels, of roles within the school, a couple of middle school folks, elementary, EL, so super helpful. Real quick, some celebrations from the past year. Continued growing our middle school student council. These are the kids who are really integral in planning a field day. We held our third annual field day. They help out with morning announcements, sparing everybody hearing my voice every morning, doing birthday shout outs and telling them what's for lunch. They plan spirit days and they organize a paper recycling program where they're doing the pickup and drop off. Also, really proud of the work we were doing with our cross grade buddies last year, where we were having, basically groups of kids from, a second grade class paired with a seventh grade class. There's benefit to being a K-8, but you got to work at it intentionally. And these buddies are one way of pulling that off. Our Life Committee, Lincoln Initiative for Equity, planned our first annual Culture Fest. This was an enormously well-attended and exciting evening. We've already got this year's on the books coming up for in 2025. Also want to be putting an eye on some planning we did in the spring of last year that set us up for what I think is a more successful year already this year. So allocating our special education staffing. We have a kind of a growing number of students on IEPs in grades K through 5. So we shifted the number of special educators working. We shifted one educator away from middle school to our K-5 band, so that we're limiting the number of folks that our gen ed teachers are collaborating with. So we have a K-1 person, a second grade, a third grade, a fourth grade, a fifth grade, really limiting the number of folks that we need to collaborate with. And that was a thing just done through an internal allocation. We've been intentional about our scheduling in middle school, where we have quote unquote peer teams. So if you're a sixth grader, you all have the same ELA teacher. If you're a seventh grader, you all have the same math teacher. No more. We've tried to eliminate sharing and increase kind of some coherence in the kid and family experience. And yes. All right. Let me move along. So budgetary impact of the things I'm about to share. I've been the lucky beneficiary of a fair amount of Title I money that I've been able to use for funding things such as a site-wide Lexia license, funding some targeted support and small group work by teachers both before and after school. With some changes in our Title I allocation, I can see utilizing some of my discretionary dollars for the targeted before and after school support as one potential vehicle. So our first goal in the coming year, and I really want to underscore how helpful it was to go into this process with a robust strategic plan for the district, nesting our school-based goals under district goals. And we've previously been able to, do that broadly, but the really concrete goals spelled out in the strategic plan were hugely helpful. So in this goal, our objective is for students to be able to increase their use of academic language, to increase their capacity to make sense of and effectively respond to complex tasks, text, and prompts. Suzanne, one of your kind of points for us to emphasize was what's unique about our school. I don't know necessarily if this is unique to Lincoln right now, but I do want to share some context for that first goal, because a big target for this work is our growing EL population. So you can see, going back to 2018, Lincoln's enrollment peaked about 581, and we had 84 EL students. Fast forward to this year, our overall census is I think, as of today, 490, but we have more EL students than we did then, right? 92. So we're looking at a greater percentage of EL students, a greater number and a greater percentage of our overall census. And this is having an impact. These students are getting some quality English language development work happening with our great EL staff, but then are included for their time in social studies and science and other contents. And so we're thinking not just for this cohort of EL students, but really for all students, we want to be focusing on so articulating some academic language built from common tier 2 words. The idea being we want to push our students, all students, not just to be memorizing and able to like spit back information, but also to be able to use that to make sense of it, to be comparing, to be contrasting, to be extending their thinking. And so we want to leverage what we have with our staff, using staff time both at common planning and also faculty meetings, to get some coherence across grade level teams and then across contents in our middle school of the kinds of high leverage academic vocabulary we want students focusing on. And so our theory of action behind this being that if kids are seeing it multiple places and if we're doing it coherently, it'll be a little bit more sticky and language that kids can better utilize. We move from, you know, kind of that vertical and horizontal articulation of it into implementing it, into instruction that reinforces this high leverage vocab, that puts more, like we say in the goal, more cognitive load onto our students. So not just explicit instruction and drill review of vocab, but like I said, getting kids utilizing high leverage words and able to use that to make sense of and explain and push their thinking and knowledge of content. Our second goal, right? Goal 2 is organized and culturally responsive communication with families that provides insights into learning and establishes connections with educators. The parent and community members of my school council were super important in formulating this goal. The first is just an understanding of the types and frequency of communications happening from our down to the individual classroom level, to our specialists, to our middle school teams, getting a sense of the kind of communication and the range, and in some cases the the discrepancies that can exist, and the feelings that parents can have that I'm getting this information from my third graders teacher, but not from my second graders, etc. So we want to understand what is going on. And then this seems low level, but it's hugely important in the life of like kids and families and schools, is the idea that our calendar and the way in which you're planning events, particularly come like May and June, is an absolute disaster. We have so many, so our opportunities to partner with families, to invite them in the classroom, to invite them to work shares, to concerts, to performances is limited because of the fact that like we were not scheduling coherently. And so we want to both look at what is going on and look at where our whole school, our PTO events, our fun events, movie nights, skates, at Lars Anderson put on by the PTO, also the scheduling of events when, avoiding conflict so parents can be present and participating in all of the opportunities that they may have to come and visit, we had a 4th grade concert happening on the same day as a 2nd grade work share with 4 or 5 families saying they had to make choices. So we're trying to both like streamline and get our arms on the kinds of communication that are going out, surveying families and surveying staff about the kinds of communication they're doing and finding to be supportive of partnership. And then finally, getting a clear and published early on calendar of events over the course of our year that are going on. Some things we know are coming up every year, no matter what. At Lincoln, things like Pumpkin Fest or our spring musical, but other opportunities that come up where like our PTO is organizing a read of The Anxious Generation, right? We want to get those things on the calendar early so everybody can participate in them and participate more robustly in the life of the school. I'm going to move through to goal 3 as I keep an eye on my clock. Our goal 3 is underneath the district goal of developing and implementing culturally responsive community. We want to create and nurture a learning environment that promotes feelings of belonging and supports students in developing their emotional regulation skills. We have seen and been proud of gains we have made since we first begun implementing the Panorama Universal Screener, to see overall like rise in students in reporting feelings of belonging. Feelings of belonging are hugely important and strongly tied to feelings of efficacy and to kids feeling better and more capable of, quote unquote, doing school. Where we're seeing, I think, a plateau in our panorama data, though, is around students identifying challenging feelings and being able to identify and work through those feelings. And those are things that are too often, leading to shutdown or leading to withdrawal from social situations, or, preventing them from persevering when a thing looks, feels, or genuinely is hard. And so, we're not giving up the ghost on belonging. That's still important. And we still have discrepancies that we need to tackle across some of our socioeconomic groups, across other demographic groups. But we're putting a particular focus this year on how we identify that challenging feelings will come up, and how can we work through them and persevere through them and identify and use some strategies to be more successful. Those are going to be themes that we touch on, being more intentional, for example, when we're planning the buddies activities, to, not simply be, sometimes it's just fun and doing a craft together, but there are other times where we want to be more intentional, where we plan to be more intentional in planning activities that help kids identify, do a read aloud together about challenging feelings and identify strategies they can utilize to work through them. So those are the three broad areas of our school improvement plan, of our three goals. They're very much in draft form right now. We kind of worked through in the spring, following the full adoption of the strategic plan, these goal areas. And then obviously, they're built not with the last round of data from the panorama survey. They're built without necessarily the school culture and climate survey data that we got from families as well over the summer. So I plan this fall to revisit what we have here and firm up and finalize with our school council.
Brian, you did a fabulous job getting it all in.
Yeah, you got about 2.5 minutes left. Are you going to cover budget implications, or?
So I sort of attempted to do that at the outset, right? Like the reality for me is the idea that, like, the budget implications are more driven by the absence of Title I funds for right now. And so I'm trying to see, we don't.
Did Lincoln fall off of Title I eligibility?
Not a question of eligibility, but I think the broad allocation of funds across the district, we know, I'm not using some of that funding is, I guess, tied up in staffing now, whereas previously it was available for funding some targeted support here. So okay.
But so I guess my question is, does any of this, what of this requires what of this is a budget line item? That's, I guess, what I'm not quite clear on.
Yeah. So I can envision right now a path where we are, under the goal about the use of academic vocabulary, if we're running, targeted groups in the way that we were previously. So paying teachers for prep time and then for contact time with kids before or after school. That's one area where I could see there being budget implications out of the principal discretionary funds that we have. But that's the extent of it right now. Possibility as well, if through staff work we identify a need for different and more professional learning, but those are the key areas. Those are really the areas where I would see it right now.
I think we have another minute left. Suzanne, I presume we're taking questions if we can do so within the time we have.
Yeah, I think so. We don't want to get
Okay.
too far behind.
No,
So
yeah. Any questions within the 1 minute that we have left for Brian? Okay.
all right, nice job, Brian.
Yes, good job, Brian.
You set a high standard here.
That's right.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
Brian.
Thank
Okay, Donna, you're next. Is that what I heard?
That's right,
Hi.
Donna, principal of Runkle School next. Thanks, Donna. And after that will be David Euclid from Driscoll School.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. I am the principal at Runkle School, and I'm going to try to share my screen as well. And I'll just speak off the slides, but not necessarily go through all of them. I did change the background. Brian's still there because they were all Lincoln pictures in this template. So now you can see Runkle in the background as well.
Well done. Thank you.
No, sorry, Brian. I didn't want to use your pictures. And he's so skilled at using up all the time, so there's no time for questions. I don't know if I can do that. I too want to thank, I have an incredible school site council at Runkle. We've been together, some of them for the 2 years, and it's a big group. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parent, and Lynn is a community member, and the same amount of teachers who represent guidance, K2, middle school, and our RISE program and special ed, and our technology specialists. So I do want to say that a lot of this school improvement plan we had started last year and we worked on over the summer, but I haven't scheduled, our first meeting is in October. So I expect that there'll be a little bit of tweaking over the next month when we meet with my first meeting with the school site council, and then moving on throughout the school year. In terms of budget, the discretionary funds that the principals have is pretty limited. It's a $10,000 line item. For Runkle, we do not have Title I. I use those discretionary funds for things like funding homework center after school, our GSA, our young scholars groups. We use that money to pay for directors for the school plays and musicals. And then I also have a really successful sporting program. Not everybody gets excited about the sports in middle school, but our coaches at Runkle have been able to include our special ed students for years, and including kids who have been in our RISE program and kids who are in the learning centers. But in order to do that, I sometimes have to hire extra staff to go to those practices and run with the kids. And so that's something that I might use my discretionary funds for, because there's a certain stipend set for those coaches. And then I might supplement that using my budget so that those students are covered. And they've done remarkably well. Like at the cross country meet, it's to the point where I have kids who run with a middle school student matched with a middle school student to support them. And then by the end of the year, they're running by themselves through that Lars Anderson, which is pretty amazing. So I've been really proud of that. And then our percentage of high need students, EL students, and students with academic based disabilities continues to grow, like Brian said, at Runkle as well. We are well staffed with special educations, and we have over 35 paraprofessionals at Runkle. I probably have one of the highest numbers with FRR for paraprofessionals. But in terms of budget, that's how I use my discretionary, our supply budget. We have highly skilled secretaries who make sure that money lasts through the whole school year. And without her, I don't think I could do that. But I don't have any other issues around that piece. Let me just move your faces so I can read. Our first goal is to increase achievement for all Runkle students by implementing Tier 1 and Tier 2 interventions to support a consistent, high quality and challenging curriculum for literacy and math using evidence-based practices. Why can't I move my screen? Oh, that helped. So some of the things that we're doing to make this goal happen is obviously we're continuing with the things that are already in place, like foundations and Hegarty. This year we're starting to train staff in literacy to prepare for the new literacy curriculum that's coming. Hopefully that will be chosen in January and then implemented next September. We had our first meeting, as did everybody in Brookline yesterday, with all of our staff. And then we want to figure out ways to engage the whole community and make sure that we're sharing all this information with parents, because I do feel like parents are sometimes the last to know when there's a change in the curriculum or we're making these big decisions around what's coming up next. My second goal around matching the district's culturally responsive community engagement plan. All Runkle educators are given opportunities to engage in cultural proficiency training and implement culturally proficient learning to decrease the implicit bias and foster community for understanding differences. Runkle is really committed to doing this work. We've had, in the past 3 years, we've had 2 trained seed instructors who have taught over 45 Runkle staff members. So I feel like, and that is no longer funded by the district. And it's no longer funded by the BEF, but I feel confident that we've trained a significant number of teachers, and we need to think about next steps, what to do next in this area. We've developed our equity team this year with guidance and 2 teachers, myself and the vice principal. We just started our equity cycle for middle school, which involves the Office of Equity, Educational Equity. Christy Hernandez has been coming over. That started yesterday with our middle school team, so we're excited about that. And this is all information that came out of the surveys that were presented, that staff really wanted this PD and wanted to do the work. I also really feel like we need to make a commitment at Runkle to work with our PTO and our MECO students and all of our marginalized students to make sure that we're including them in all the activities that are happening at Runkle, because we do feel like the attendance at a lot of our events for marginalized students is low, and we need to figure out how to make that better. Last year, we invited the MECO director, Millie, to come and speak to my staff, and she was very well received. Gave us a lot of information about MECO that our staff didn't know, and they wanted more information about how to connect MECO families to Runkle families, and not necessarily go back to host families, but to talk about ways that we can make sure we're communicating and making those families feel included. And this year at Runkle, we're starting PLCs, professional learning communities, at our faculty meetings, for half of our faculty meetings. And all of those professional learning committee all have a DEI strand in them. They include data and student achievement, building strong relationships with students, culture and equity, common grading practices in middle school, and promoting a growth mindset. And my third goal is to enhance family and staff engagement to foster a safe and inclusive community and culture at Runkle. Here's where my thing. We also have another organization at Runkle called ROAR that was started 2 years ago by a group of families, and that stands for Runkle Organization Against Racism. They're working with us to, again, reach out to all the families who feel marginalized and included. They want to know exactly what's going on and how we're addressing racism at Runkle. We've already met with them in September, and we'll meet with them monthly, and they will be holding events for families as well. We're looking to improve our panorama data, which actually in Runkle, I felt like we had 84% of families say that they had a really strong sense of belonging here, which feels really good. But I know it's not everybody. And so this screen just talks about all the different steps that we're taking to make sure all those things are happening. I'm going to stop there. See if people have questions. I talk fast.
Wow, Donna, you did a good job. Time-wise. I mean, not you didn't, you did
I talk
otherwise.
fast. I talk
Yeah,
fast.
you did talk quickly. Questions? I have 2 questions, but they're things you brought up, Donna, which I would just like to request clarification on, since we have a little bit of time now. One of the things you said was that you basically work within a $10,000 principal discretionary budget. And it's my understanding that the SIPs are supposed to determine the budget as opposed to you fitting within the budget. And so I guess, Susan, could you comment on how this is supposed to be approached? Are the principals supposed to get a set amount that they work within, or is the SIP supposed to drive their allocation?
Yeah, happy to answer that. So in the past year,
just to be clear, it's not necessarily what's the right way as opposed to the way we've done it.
right.
If those are different. Okay.
Principals are referring to as the way that it has been.
Right.
And we're transitioning to a site-based model, which the rest of the Commonwealth did quite some time ago. And so this is kind of the start of that transition, where the principals work with their site councils to develop a school improvement plan. Of course, that nests, as Brian said, within the strategic plan, but there's also challenges at each school that are different, and so your focus areas would be perhaps different school by school, depending on what the student population and needs are there. And so, though there's only $10,000 that the principals have funded themselves in the past, we're beginning to shift that model to one that more is aligned with accomplishing the goals in the strategic plan as well as in their SIPs. So
at what point, it feels a little bit like a catch-22 chicken and egg. At what point do principals articulate goals that don't fit into a $10,000 box? Maybe the box is smaller, maybe it's bigger.
Well, they're communicating now, and we're going to develop the budget beginning in another month or so for the upcoming year.
Okay, so their SIPs, as they're presenting them now, might get modified because the SIPs have been designed with their historical budget limits in mind?
I don't believe their SIPs have been designed with their historical $10,000 budget in mind. It shouldn't be.
Okay. I won't put Donna on the spot to ask her, but that is definitely something that will be interesting to me. And then I just have one more question, and maybe Suzanne or Jody could answer this. Donna, you also had mentioned that the selection of the literacy program was going to be in January for implementation next September. And I thought this literacy program was being selected in the fall for implementation starting in January.
I
Is
might
it-
have said,
Well, I'm just curious if the time has slipped.
It has,
Or-
whoops,
okay.
I'm good. It has changed, Mariah. We ran this through curriculum sub. We wanted to front load some PD this year so that when teachers have the materials, they'll be fully able to use them correctly.
Thank you.
Not correctly, because they would do correctly no matter what, but fully be able to fully use them.
Okay.
Just if I could add, Mariah, to your point about the budget and school improvement plans. I mean, I remember when I would have to present my budget at my school in Boston. If I had a program or something I needed in my school, I had to make a pitch for it. And together we would figure out where that money might come from. So it's a different approach from what we have done here in the past. I think we need to kind of practice and give permission for our building administrators to think in a different way. Because they haven't been allowed to do that in the past. And so, as Susan knows, if that's where we're going, we have to kind of show them the way of how we might accept.
Well, I think it's almost like scaffolding it for them too, like making the space to have this happen, as opposed to,
right.
Yeah, it's not just permission, it's like beyond permission, and the way I interpret it.
Right.
Because it's not like this machine never stops. So the idea that the principal is going to be able to wedge themselves into the process at the exact right moment without support seems.
No, that won't work. No, we have
exactly, it won't work. So, okay,
right.
good. Carolyn, I see your hand is up, and I think we have like another minute for discussion on this before we go on to David Euclid.
Great. Thanks, Donna. That was great. And I enjoyed hearing all the things you're doing, and just specifically about this, your 10,000. And I was taking notes. You talked about GSA sports. Love how you're doing unified sports. After school tutoring. So I'm particularly interested in sort of academics and the academic portion of the strategic plan. So you mentioned after school tutoring. Can you just talk super briefly about that? And are there opportunities in any grades, or particularly maybe in middle school, for enrichment challenge for students who are looking for something more? Or are you doing sort of, are there opportunities also for like high dosage tutoring for students who've been identified, especially on the metrics in the strategic plan, who need to be helped out?
in terms of the budget item that I referenced in on my slides, the homework center is the after school support that we provide for students. And historically, it's been hard to staff that. It used to be years ago, teachers did that and got a stipend. Now it's been paraprofessionals who've stepped up. Last year, I couldn't even run it because I didn't have anybody. So this year I do have somebody who's interested, and it's only, honestly, it's an hour after school for students who choose to attend. It's not enrichment. It's really support around getting homework done and under the supervision of an adult. But in terms of the enrichment piece, those things come out of like math league. Sometimes, the kids who do math league or math counts, which are two, right, Dave? I'm looking for help with two different math pieces that provide some enrichment. But other than that, that's not in my budget piece.
Okay, I think we're at time. Thank you, Donna. Really helpful.
Thanks, guys.
And David, you are next.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. I am Can I share my slides? Let me see if I can.
And for those who don't know, I'm David Yukos, principal of Driscoll School.
Let's see who's after David.
We'll have Hayes School, which will be presented by the Vice Principal Kirtan Patel.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm just having some trouble here sharing my screen. All right, just bear with me for a moment, please. It's telling me I need to leave the meeting.
David, you just shared it with me, so why don't I try to pull it up here for you?
Is that okay? Oh, thank
Yeah,
you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Thanks for sending.
Thank you, Betsy.
Mhm.
So,
Everyone see it?
yep. So I did, I guess everyone's been talking about their building. I left the old building there so everyone could have a memory of the old Driscoll School. We're so excited to be in our brand new school. I do want, oops, let me pause. I do want to thank our wonderful site council for all the work that they have done over the last several years, not only just in helping put together a school improvement plan, but in all the thinking around this whole building project and moving into a new building and all the new processes that we have in place or that we're still putting in place to help us move into this new space. So Nicole McClellan, Scott Ananian, Kyle DeMeo, Lee Simmons joined us last year, and Jonathan Golden is on his way out, but he was also instrumental in helping us put together our school improvement plan last year. We have not yet met as a site council yet this year, but we are certainly looking forward to meeting as a group in October so that we can continue to add to this school improvement plan. Our teacher reps are Erica Sullivan, Mackenzie Snow, and they've done an amazing job. And I'd like to recruit somebody from our middle school to join us because it's always nice to have that lens in our planning. So as we move to the next slide, before I get into some of our budgetary impacts, I do want to say that we've, again, very excited about moving into our new building. It took a tremendous effort of everyone just working together in the planning to move us into this space. Right now, we're currently finishing up our outdoor space, and the kids are very excited to at least have access to a field that they haven't had in 4 years. And so there's been some planning that we've been doing as a school, as a staff, in preparing our students to actually play on a playground that they haven't been on in 4 years, and actually new playground structures, new outdoor spaces. So our teachers met on their first days back just to plan and come up with some expectations around playground play. If we tend to forget about things about playing safely on different structures. So they've already met with their students and talked about these expectations. And this required some planning from our staff prior to starting the school year. And then we're going to allow them, as different sections of the outdoor space open up, to go in and walk the new space and continue to add to their guidelines for their students to help make sure that they're playing safely outside. So we're very, very excited about, and the students are very excited because they're watching this every day. They're watching the transformation of a new outdoor space take place right in front of their eyes. So it's very, very exciting. We're very excited that Beep joined us last year, and they're a wonderful part of our school community. We included an additional Beep class, so we now have 4 Beep classes at the Driscoll School. We continue to celebrate our school-wide events such as Arts Equinox, Science Solstice, and we've had all these celebrations. Some of these celebrations, like our school picnic and our Juneteenth celebration at Waldstein Park. We've had to have our big celebrations off campus, and we're really looking forward to having these wonderful celebrations that were used to be off campus back on campus again, including our picnic, which is tomorrow night. We were excited that we celebrated our first graduating class last June. They were the first group, and we've started a new tradition where we've taken a picture of all of our students on the stairwell in the middle of the school. And we're framing each of those pictures every year and placing them outside of our multipurpose room, as well as our 8th grade play cast. And so this is going to be a nice way to make the walls look really, really nice, but also allow students to come back and, we'll capture who they are. They can come back and see who they were back, when they come back and visit the school. So it's going to be a nice tradition that we've started. Also, just a couple of other celebrations. I just want to say we also had a wonderful international night that we brought back that we hadn't had since pre-pandemic. It was an amazing outpouring of families bringing in all sorts of recipes and food, and it was just an incredibly dynamic evening. So really enjoyed sharing that and just having a wonderful experience where we got to learn about different cultures in our school. Also, we have an amazing Driscoll Dragonian newspaper that is now, I believe, in its 3rd or 4th year, and it's really an outstanding publication. And that's run by Zoe Borden, who's our 6th grade teacher, along with parent volunteer. And we do such a great job with that publication, and it allows our middle schoolers to actually go out and write stories and capture what's going on in our community and put that into our amazing publication. Those come out 4 times a year. So those are some of our celebrations, and we can move on to the budgetary impact. One of the things I put in terms of, and so this may kind of dovetail into what you were talking about in terms of using our school improvement plan to request funds. Our middle school, I paid our middle school staff 2 summers ago to work together to utilize our wonderful consultant, Ann Larson, to help train our staff on consistent practices in the classroom. And a lot of these practices are not only just good for our students who are in the lab program, but they're good for all students. And that's why we work together to come up with different techniques and processes in the classroom that are consistent from class to class, so that they're not having to learn the organizational system from a teacher who's in math and then a different organizational system to somebody in social studies. We use the same organizational system, and that really helps our students have some consistency. So I paid our staff a couple of years ago to really get together to not only talk about their learning, but also they worked on code of conduct and also aligning their all the learning and teaching that goes on in their classrooms. And I'd like to pay them again this summer to enable them to again work together as a middle school team to continue with this work, because there's a lot more that you can do than just teaching students how to utilize 2-column notes, but you can go a little bit more in depth in terms of implementing test preparation packets, and those can be also consistent as well. One of the things that as part of our work with Landmark, we do have these organizational systems where we have notebooks that each of the classrooms have to organize their work, but they also have homework notebooks. And so there are some things that we really require our students to have each year, and it's important for them to have these. And so we have our parents usually put out the money for this, and it's a hefty amount of money for these binders and our organizers. And Dr. Givens and I have had a conversation about this in the past, and that is I'd love for this, because this is something that we require all of our middle school students to have, that it'd be great if the district could pay for this. And so it's cost us this year around $8,500 for grades 6 through 8 to have these binders that we need in the classrooms to organize their work, and also to have a homework binder and that they bring to and from home, along with a Dragon notebook that they use to write down their assignments. So it really provides them this organizational system and structure that will help them stay organized, make sure they stay on top of their assignments. But our whole middle school team is all bought into the process of making sure that they do write their homework in their homework binders. In their Dragon notebooks. and they also stamp their notebooks every day. So these are all practices that our middle school has bought into, and they do such a wonderful job. But I'd love for us to find a way to be able to pay for this for our middle school families. Also,
David, I'm just giving you a 5-minute warning.
holy mackerel! All right, sorry. So we also want to continue pairing our students who have not identified staff as a trusted or need a trusted adult in school, and we want to be able to utilize, like, I thought we got a BEF grant in the past of $1,000, and we'd like to incorporate that work again this year so that students do have a trusted adult here at school. So we can move on from there. So again, increasing our achievement for all, our strategic objective is to use district-wide literacy assessments using DIBELS and STAR data to plan and deliver targeted instruction that meets the needs of students in the foundation of literacy skills. We have that as one of our strategic objectives, and we also we want to identify successful strategies that provide a robust tier 1 and 2 interventions in math to increase achievement levels for each student in math. So we can move on from there. So again, we're very excited that we'll be utilizing district-provided assessments throughout the course of the year to help with our just analyzing data for our students and for our staff to be able to look at that so that they can help improve their instruction in the classroom and ELA. And again, those will be assessed throughout the course of the year. The same thing for math. We'll continue to help as district-wide assessments to help us identify the needs of our students and to help adjust our practice in the classroom. And then one of the other things that we put in here is the discussion about paying teachers for some summer work to help produce grade level math games so that students have some work to do over the summer and the parents can have that support over the summer. Our second objective is to bridge the K-5 and 6-8 communities in order to solidify our identity as a K-8 school and develop a connection from our elementary grades to our middle school. Next slide. So again, we want to make sure that we're continuing with our traditions here at Driscoll School because it really solidifies who we are as a community and how we celebrate each other and celebrate the work. We have a Arts Equinox celebration, Science Solstice, and our Juneteenth celebration. We also want to prepare students for the middle school in order to ease that transition from elementary grades to the middle school. And so we have a time at the end of the school year for our parents to come in and learn a little bit about what middle school is and what to prepare for. Our 6th grade team in September, they just held their evening meeting with 6th grade families to specifically go into what the day in life is like in 6th grade. And just to answer any questions that they might have, because it is a big transition moving from 5th to 6th grade. And then this year, we also would like to provide more communication to middle school families about what is happening in middle school. There's so much that goes on from K-5 from those teachers. There's constant communication, and we want to make sure that we continue that for our middle school families. And then our third goal is to identify individual student needs and social emotional health. We want students to have a sense of belonging and feel respected and valued by their classmates and teachers. And then by doing that, we have an amazing clinical team that reviews our panorama data. They meet on a weekly basis. And we want to just make sure that we are making sure that students feel a good sense of belonging at Driscoll School. Our middle school, we are continuing to use postcards. These are postcards that are decorated by our elementary grade students, K-2 students. And these are postcards that our middle school team sends out to middle school families, letting them know what wonderful things their students are doing. It's a great way to let families know what's going on, but also to provide positive reinforcement for things that they're doing well, whether it's study habits or being a good friend. We really want to make sure that we're supporting our middle schoolers. And also, we will continue to one of the things I'd like to continue to do is find time in our middle school schedule to build some sort of advisory for our 7th and 8th grade. 6th grade is built in, but 7th and 8th grade, we're still endeavoring to find time to bring that into our 7th and 8th grade group. And that's
8 seconds left. Nice work, David.
Sorry I took so long in the beginning.
No, it was fine. Questions from the subcommittees? Jesse, go ahead.
Hi, David, Jesse. Question about the 8,500 for this, the transition or the, the middle school stuff. How does that align with the other elementary schools? And the two that came before you, they didn't mention anything about this. It's like sort of an additional or over the top need, or that the parents are just paying. So is this something different just to Driscoll, or is this does this arise out of a different need?
That's a great question. It is actually unique to Driscoll. We have the lab program, and it's a home-based program, and our Landmark has consulted with us over the years, and they helped us develop these organizational systems. And what our teams have realized is that these, again, are good practices for all of our students. And so over the years, we have refined, we've worked on, and we've changed what these organizational systems look like. Like, for instance, last year they used to carry around these binders with straps on them, but nobody liked the one strap. And we've now gone down to just a binder, like just a regular binder. And they carry their Chromebooks separately. It used to be carried all in one thing. So they're constantly refining this, the materials, and but it's certainly unique to Driscoll.
Thank you.
Carolyn, I saw your hand was up. We've got like 10 seconds.
Okay, well, I would like to say there was a time when, at least at the Baker School under Mary Brown, we were doing the Landmark stuff with this organizational systems. My daughter, who's now a freshman in college, experienced that. My son did not. I see $8,500 to me, in my experience, comparing those two kids and talking to others. That is priceless stuff. Jody, Michelle, Susan, I would love for you guys to note that. It's invaluable, the organizational stuff that Landmark did. Thank you.
Thanks, Carolyn. I forgot who was next.
Next is
Kirtan.
Hayes School,
Yep.
Hayes School. And then after that,
Yes.
we'll have Vanessa Bolello from Lawrence School.
Thank you. Kirtan, while you're pulling up your slides. Oh, you're so fast. Never mind. I'll hold my question.
Yes, thank you. I'm Kirtan Patel. I'm the VP at Hayes, and it's good to see many of you here today. We just put some pictures in. The start of the school year started with our renaming becoming official in the sense that the front of the school was lettered. The official title came up where it said Heath initially, and now it says Roland Hayes. So some of our family members also did a nice mural or painted on the sidewalk a picture of Roland Hayes. So that was a nice way to start our school year. We've definitely had some amazing celebrations last year and this year already. One of the pieces of celebrating we did was just around some of the data that came back from the panorama data that we gave out to parents, to students, and to staff. And it was nice to share with staff. Some of this wasn't a surprise, but it was nice to see data behind kind of the feeling we have at our school, that staff really feel like they belong, that they're known, that they're valued. And we had great numbers on that. I think our staff school belonging numbers were around 94% of our staff endorsing either that they agreed or strongly agreed with that sentiment. Students gave us around an 83% score on that same sense of belonging, which was amazing. We've been doing some strategic and deliberate work to increase that since post-COVID. So it was nice to see those efforts in data form paying off. And teachers also, gave us feedback as well as school leaders. And we had, good results on that. I think 88% of staff were endorsing positive endorsements for different leadership attributes. So those were some of the celebrations that I wanted to share. We also asked students, how much do you think you matter to others? And 82% of students felt that they did. That went up by 10%. So we're seeing a lot of this growth in the ways that we've been working in terms of our old school improvement plan, in terms of our new, and what we continue to do at Hayes. The last celebration I want to add is we were always a cell phone free environment, but we went pretty strong on that this year with our school, with the PTO in partnership, and that's been going really well. We've had great, we've had parents voice in saying thank you, and we've really seen, I've only had, I think, one cell phone that I've seen so far. So kids are really keeping them away, either in their locker or at home, but not in their pockets. And these are the celebrations that we've had for this year. Our school site council, we've had, the folks that you see here. I myself am not part of the school council, but I'm representing Dr. Sevelius here, who wasn't able to join. But we've had a great crew of teachers and parents year after year. So Dr. Sevelius, Miss Anderson, Miss Watkins, Miss Sontag, and Miss H are school reps, and representing everyone from principal to paraprofessional. And then our community and parent representatives as well. And all of these folks have been here for 2 years, so they've really seen the school improvement plan and given feedback, and will meet very shortly again to see where it's at for this year as well. So big thank you to all of these members who have done a very thorough job at reviewing and editing and looking towards the future. In terms of budget, our school seeks to be a good steward of the budgetary needs of the district and with the funds provided by the town, state, and federal government. So all funding decisions are made with the best interest of children in mind and under the constraints set forth from the town managers and our school committee. So with whatever that pot of funding that we have left at the school level, generally all of that is going each year towards professional development. And this year, we're excited to partner with Aspire and MGH, which we've done consulting and smaller PD work through in the past years. But really, they'll be a partner for this entire year to help us grow our inclusion muscle and also help us learn more about supporting students on the spectrum and beyond. And then the remaining funds have been going towards creating, student opportunities for them to belong, to connect during the school day and some after school, such as our student affinity groups, AAPI, Young Scholars, Homework Club, the School Play, Model UN, and more. So as we look forward to the moving years, we will expect more funding and staffing and support needed to support the RISE program that we have at our school, which is expanding and requires quite a bit of considerable support, both financially and in terms of people and material. And then our school is getting smaller. Naturally, we're moving from a 3-section to a 2-section. All of our, from K to 3rd grade right now, they're all 2-section grade levels. So as that happens, of course, the budget will reflect those changes. And although we're getting smaller in that way, the percentage of our high need students is growing. Almost 1/4 of our students are on IEPs. And as that number grows, we also have our English language learner students that are growing as well. So these are the need areas for our school as we look forward to coming school years. Our first goal that matches with the district goal was using evidence-based literacy instruction to ensure that students in grades K to 3 meet all their grade level benchmarks as measured by DIBELS and the Foundations of Reading. So that has been the work that we've been doing in Haggerty and Foundations for a while now, and that work will continue. And what we're looking forward to continue to do is providing additional small group instruction for those students that aren't meeting those benchmarks, and then really having general ed teachers partner with special educators to ensure that students who do have reading goals are receiving both the structured literacy instruction and additional code-based instruction, so we can meet that goal as well. this is a area of need. We'll see certain students need more support here, especially our English language learners. And for that reason, the other initiative will be around continuing to engage in data review processes and cycles with the broader team, our literacy specialists, the special educators, the EL teachers, and school admin to really look at student by student, who's where are they, where do they need to go next, and what do we need to get them there. And yeah, we'll really keep an eye on that DIBELS data, which has been a great way to really quickly see where are our kids and where are they going and where do we and how do we get them there. So that's goal 1. Our second school improvement goal is around a positive increase in student data returns, particularly for students with disabilities and our BIPOC students, so that everyone can advocate for and access what they need. And the work in this, it's not new, right? This is kind of the bread and butter work that's been going on for years. But some of the initiatives that we're really looking to hone in on to see better returns in terms of data are teaching and practicing mental health hygiene, such as mindfulness, compassion, empathy, and the ability for students and staff to just show up as their authentic selves. So a lot of that work is happening in the classroom with our student support team also pushing it. So those are our guidance counselors, our psychologists, pushing into teach kids directly, teach staff in PD, and really developing from the classroom level up. We also want to continue to protect and create safe spaces for students to engage in their affinity groups. These are well loved by students. They happen during the school day, usually at lunch or when, so all kids can access to it, which was very different from when I was a teacher and we did everything after school. It is nice for kids to have access during the school day at lunch, recess if they choose to, not recess, but lunch, or most of the time WIN, which is a what I need block for students in middle school to access this or homework support. But those clubs are our GSA, our Rainbow Club, Young Scholars. Rainbow Club is the younger version of the middle school GSA club, and in each, it's for grades 3, 4, and 5, and each time, every Monday where that runs, we have 20, 30, 40, sometimes 50 kids per grade level going to that club with their lunch to eat and then engage in connecting activities and a little bit of learning at the same time. We also want to look at, it's nice to see a lot of similarities between what's happening here and I was only here for the Driscoll presentation, but a lot of good stuff happening there and here as well. We're also looking at that trusted adult data. I think it's so important to have people or have kids that are connected to a person, and we're actively looking that in school culture, climate setting, in middle school setting, to make sure all folks are connected, and as well as K to 5. And the last thing I want to mention regarding this goal is we're also launching into our 3rd year of our peer empowerment program, which was in part funded by the BEF, which has been this pretty much a buddy reading program where older students buddy up with younger students to engage in character traits and also activities based on character traits like kindness, advocacy, and that data has been amazing as well in terms of improving people's sense of belonging and people's sense of connectedness with each other. And especially for our BIPOC students, we've been seeing good data on that as well. And
You've got, just FYI, 3.5 minutes left.
man, time flies when you're having fun. Our last goal is really about attendance and improving that. So we do have generally great attendance, 94, 95, 96% attendance, but we want to drill down on our chronically absent students. And this is data that I've been looking at for the last year and actively with the school secretary, with our principal, calling parents, emailing parents, checking in about what's happening. We want to continue that work and also connect with families more to develop plans to get students here, celebrate students that are here, support the students that need to get here. It's a lot of parent work usually, sometimes student work as well. So we want to continue honing in on that and improve chronic absentee numbers. And lastly, our fourth goal is about the RISE program. We want to ensure that it continues to receive priority funding and focus. It is a big part of our school. It's made us better, and we need to continue to be able to fund it with people, space, funding, materials to really do it justice for the way it needs to be delivered. So those are our goals. I won't go through that slide. And yeah, this is the link to our full plan, and it's on our website as well.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the committees? I have one question. First off, I thought it was great, very informative. Is there a amount for the financial impact? The budget impact didn't actually list an amount. And I know these aren't your slides also, these are ACES, so.
I'm the messenger here, so
yeah.
I'm not aware of the exact number, but I want to say it's under 10K.
Okay. Can I ask also, since no one else is asking, I'll just ask real quick. Can you talk a little bit about the genesis of the fourth goal?
Yeah. So Hayes didn't have a sub-separate program for many years, and
Yeah.
all the other Brookline schools did. So right on the tail end of COVID, this was a new opportunity that we were given to build up the RISE program. So we started off in kindergarten, and currently we have students all the way up to fourth grade. And with that, comes a strong focus in terms of professional development for our staff to be able to support students that are part of that program, because it is also an inclusion program. Students are within the classrooms much of the day and then in RISE classrooms as needed. So throughout our school, we recognize that as a need for us to grow in and also continue to fund properly with people and funding so that we can really make it the program that it needs to be. The students in there generally always have a one-to-one RISE, or sorry, one-to-one paraprofessional. They're pushing into the classrooms. There's a lot of training folks need. There's a lot of training gen ed teachers also need to be able to support a student that's on the spectrum. So it's a learning curve for the whole school. And I'd like to say we're hitting doubles and triples sometimes, and sometimes we're striking out. But to continue to have that good batting average and do justice by our students and families, we really want that. That is our fourth goal, because it is a big part of our school in many ways.
Would you describe it as a concern or just being proactive?
Proactive and yeah, I mean, the concern every year is it requires a lot of people to be able to continue to fund that as we grow. So, and each year we match that with the people that are needed. Yeah, so it's not a concern, but it definitely is something that we're always looking at to make sure we're ahead, because it's definitely hard to run that program when you have, paras that might not, we're not fully staffed, for example. So getting ahead and really staffing and getting ahead of the curve on that is kind of the intent behind that.
Thank you. Carolyn, and then I think we probably don't have other questions. We'll move on.
Thanks. And this isn't a question, it's a comment. I'd just like to say, at Brookline Day, I was approached by a set of parents who have a child at Hayes. Their child is on the spectrum, is not in RISE, and they are really, really satisfied, gratified, grateful with what they're seeing and experiencing at the school. And they feel that because everybody is participating in RISE, that is impacting the experience of their child in a really positive way. So just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Jesse, and then we'll move on to.
Vanessa
Vanessa.
Blillo is next. Yeah.
Hi, Mr. Patel. So I just questioned, maybe didn't get from my note. What did you mention that the level of kids on IEPs are across these going into this year?
Right around like 25%.
Oh, 25. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you. Next up
Next is Vanessa Blillo, yep, from principal of Lawrence School. And then after that, we'll have Candace Whitmore, principal of Florida Ruffin Ridley. Vanessa, oh, there she comes.
Yep. Hi. Betsy, am I sharing my own slides?
That'd be great. Do you have them handy?
I do. Okay. Sorry there. All right. Okay, can everyone see this now?
Yes.
All right, thank you everybody for having me here today. Before we get started, I just would like to give a thank you to the members of our school council, Alice Wong Tucker, Sally Madsen, and Jessica Ulian have been members as part of the caregiver side of the group for the last 2 years. So prior to me coming into joining the school this last year. And Kirsten Alper was the only staff representative other than Dominique Ferdinand. We were able to add Katie Grenzebek. So Kirsten is our educational technology specialist, and Katie Grenzebek as one of our math specialists at Lawrence also joined the team. So we are launching our elections right now for our new group. We just wrapped up our last, actually did a meeting last week where I shared out the draft that I'm presenting tonight with all of you so that we could do one final look through, because over the summer there were additions and changes based on the pacing and progression of the literacy work in district. So we had already planned, we were going to do one more in the fall to look at the changes that had made. So I really appreciate all of them getting in last week to give final feedback to me before this presentation. In terms of celebrations, I believe you all have copies of the actual school improvement plan, yes? Yes, okay. So I've listed some of the great celebrations and highlights for our school, but I think the ones that I'd really like to highlight that are very much carried through into this plan moving forward into the next 2-year cycle is really, we started the work this last year of implementing a PBIS structure. That was not something that was in place at all at our school. So for those of you that are not familiar with PBIS, it's positive behavior interventions and supports. And we launched that work last fall as a leadership team, Mrs. Horst, Dr. Dominique Ferdinand, and myself with the K-5 staff. And that resulted in us really putting together a behavior matrix with the teachers and staff of Lawrence that it has led to common expectations and our core values: be safe, be respectful, be responsible, which is now really part of our core work, and moving into this next year is going to continue, as you will see as you read through our SIP. Some of the other highlights that really also are going to be carried into the work this year is that we got to participate as one of the schools doing the pilot residencies with the Office of Educational Equity. That was Christy Hernandez and Claire Galloway Jones. They came in February and spent time at Lawrence, and it was a wonderful way to launch into the equity cycle work that we are going to be part of this coming year. Finally, on a fun note, but actually going to be very much linked to our building a sense of belonging and community here that's even stronger than it already was in the spring. We had some students actually around in the middle of the year come to me and ask if we could have a mascot. And so we ended up having kindergarten, 6th grade, and 3rd graders sort of sponsor the 3 candidates. And they were the leopard, the lemur, and the lobster, and ultimately had a full school election. And we are now officially the leopards, which will become part of our ticketing system and give us more of a sense of identity for Lawrence. There was a lot of feeling that it was a little unfair. Other schools had their mascots, and students were very much advocating with me that we needed to have one at Lawrence as well. So I'm very excited about that. In terms of the plan I'm presenting tonight, as you know, the vast majority of money in Brookline, certainly in terms of school-based budgets, is about staffing positions. So we really don't have much control right now over budget at the building level. In terms of our discretionary funds, particularly given that right now we are the second highest level of high need students across the district, right behind, I believe it's Lincoln, in terms of high need students. And so our percentage of high need students here at Lawrence, and that would be low income English learners and students with disabilities combined, is stable right around 50% of our school population. That means we really have to target and focus our work on intervention and intervention curriculum as we evolve into a true multi-tiered system support model, MTSS, which we know is going to be really instrumental in helping our students achieve and grow socially, emotionally, behaviorally, and also, of course, academically. And so a lot of the discretionary funds that we have right now, and you'll see this through our through my SIP as well, in terms of our initiatives, is going to be focused on what are the intervention materials that we need to use to support students in tier 2 and tier 3. That comes with a cost. And so I would imagine a lot of our money will be spent on that. And also we do need to have a robust homework club to support our high needs students. And that is a big part of, in terms of the stipended and the money that we spend discretionarily, a lot of it goes towards that, along with our other stipended positions. We are excited to have Model UN at Lawrence this fall for the first time. And so that is another area that will be funded out of that. We know that we really want to continue to increase the sense of belonging with our middle school students. And that's another way to do that, is increasing our clubs and activity options for our middle school students. All right. With that, I'll go into our first SIP goal, and this isn't an area of literacy. You know the district strategy well, but at Lawrence, our first goal area is really focused on literacy, and the objective being that Lawrence students will demonstrate improved levels of achievement and growth in literacy as measured by building, administered, and standardized assessments. So certainly, if you look at our overall goals and benchmarks, we certainly need to focus on our K-3 students. That's a no-brainer. That's where the foundations of literacy start. And with us now having fully implemented the M-Class DIBELS assessment and screening tool, we really want to be monitoring our students and shooting high to have 80% of our students K through 3rd grade meeting those expectations for those foundational reading skills. But that's just one area. And in terms of, I've listed these as sort of key outcomes. I put the initiatives that are linked to this on a next slides. But thinking about that specific goal, that's linked to our implementing with fidelity a structured literacy approach. And we know with our Hegarty and foundations, those are going to be the foundations for that work. So making sure that all of our educators are doing that, and doing that with fidelity the way the programs are supposed to be done. We do know, looking at our data, that that has worked very well for many of our students. There's those subgroups, pockets of student populations that we need to target, and that's really talking about beyond tier 1, what are we going to do for those students? But the other literacy goals that we are going to really be focusing on is 4th through 8th grade, thinking about writing. Now that we have STAR reading that is being implemented, and we've always had our MCAS, we really need to target and think about our students meeting and exceeding those standards, both on MCAS, but also on STAR. So we have those measures for our students that we should be focused on, and we need to link that with ensuring that we are putting into place both a rigorous and a standards-based tier 1 literacy program. So we're going to be talking a lot about that as a staff. What does that look like? What are those standards? Examining it and examining the data. And going along with that, making sure as we adopt a new literacy program that we are implementing that with fidelity. So there's two ways of measuring how students are doing, both achievement, STAR and MCAS look at that, but also growth. And looking at how well students are growing compares them to similar populations in other districts and schools. And it's a really, really important measure. I've always found focusing on growth percentiles is an important area for a school to focus on and educators to be thinking about. And that leads to our last one. We know that we've had challenges historically across the district, and certainly Lawrence is one of those schools that has had subgroups, historically disproportional subgroups, not achieving in making the same growth. We actually need to have higher levels of growth. So if you think of the band for growth being 40 to 60 is the average band, these historically disproportional groups actually need to be closer to that 55 in order to be starting to close our achievement gaps. So that's really important. And we're going to be doing this through that implementation of this MTS model I described, high quality instruction in the classrooms for everybody getting that exposure, and then who needs more, and really targeting diagnostically through our data and looking at it to figure out what each kid needs to make sure they're all achieving.
You have 4.5 minutes left.
Okay. So in terms of this key initiatives, I think I've sort of described these. I think it really starts with a master schedule. You'll see this again in my math goal, but really focusing on professional development in terms of the science of reading practices. We've already worked that, implementing with fidelity our reading programs as they're rolled out, but also really thinking about how we're teaching writing to ensure that piece, because that's really where our student performance drops off, is the writing area. All right, the second goal. This goal is really focused a little bit different. And as you start to examine and look at MCAS scores in a few weeks, as that information is no longer embargoed, you will see that Lawrence has done very, very well in our math scores. We're very excited about the progress. Our teachers really have been focused on using assessment data already and thinking about implementing our program with fidelity. This last year, we made some pretty major changes in terms of scheduling to think about that tier one, and we've seen the payoff already. So we want to continue that work, but we really want to think about differentiation, using the assessment information to drive differentiation. Because one of the things I want to see is, I know from our families, many of them say our kids already know these things going into third grade. What are you doing for them? And so I want to really be thinking about all of our learners, including our students who need enrichment. So this goal is now we're doing our math curriculum with fidelity. We understand how to collect data and information. How do we use that now to think about what our students need? So you'll see that a lot of these goals actually are similar in terms of performance, but I am really focusing in on our disproportional groups in terms of both their growth, but also how many of them are hitting, meeting, and exceeding, because the disproportionality is still there. However, our overall numbers look pretty good. So the key initiatives, as I said, we're really going to be focusing on working with teachers, with our math specialists, on how to differentiate, but then also in that tier two, thinking about how do we reach the students who are struggling with math, and especially utilize our systems already in place, a math workshop model. That's going to be a large focus in math. All right, so the last goal area is our culture and climate goal. And this one is talking about the core competencies of social emotional learning, while fostering a safe and inclusive learning environment that emphasizes respect and embraces diversity. And we're going to be doing this in several different ways. One, we are going to continue to implement our tier one program, K-5, which is second step, and making sure that our classrooms are doing that with fidelity on a regular basis. We know that's going to help. Our big goals are around increasing our sense of belonging for both all of our students, but then also our students who have historically been marginalized. And we see that in our climate surveys that have been completed. So you start with a good foundation, but we also, as I mentioned earlier, we're really going to be focused on PBIS, implementing the next levels of those strategies. And that's going to be mostly focused K through 6, 6 through 8, The big work we're doing is I am partnering with Christy Hernandez. I'm very excited about this work, as well as our equity leads, positions that you all funded, to implement the equity toolkit with our 6th to 8th grade teachers. It's a train the trainer model. I know it was described to you by Christy in a spring presentation, but we are very, very excited about this. Actually had our first meeting in the train the trainer model just the other day with Christy, and we are ready for our first faculty meeting in this work, and then diving into the work of those 10 competencies that Christy described so well back in the spring to all of you. So PBIS K through 6, the equity cycle work 6 through 8, with some overlap in that 4 to 6 band as students transition into our middle school programs. And then the last part of this is really just focused in on our MTSS model. Again, you're seeing some themes here, but this is about students who are struggling social, emotionally, and behaviorally. So again, as we implement our ticket system for PBIS, that's for everybody. But what about the students who need individual incentive plans? How do you do that? How does our clinical team and our admin team support students in those areas and really focus on the 5 competencies that CASEL as an organization has described for social emotional learning? And with that, I will give you an opportunity to ask questions.
Okay, we are at time, so we'll keep this snappy. I see Steven's hand is up.
Thanks, Mariah. Thanks, Vanessa. I thought that was a really rich presentation. Just one really quick question.
Sure.
On your first outcome,
Mhm.
your growth indicators were really specific.
Yep.
You're measuring change by growth, but when you're measuring around disaggregated groups, but the aggregate group is measured by a threshold, those 85% marks. Can you, one, let us know why you're choosing to measure the aggregate group by that 85% mark rather than by a
Yep.
growth mark? And also, what is that 85% mark a growth measure? What is the growth that 85% represents?
Yep. So in any group, you're never going to reach 100%, right? There's always going to be outliers for various reasons. And so I have found in my time as a principal, 85% is a very rigorous goal. If you look at highest performing schools across the state, so the 85% is achievement. So those are the achievement levels. Just to clarify, I have goals that are both around achievement. So 85% of Lawrence 4th through 8th graders globally, we want to be meeting or exceeding the standards. Historically, Lawrence grades 3 through 8, in literacy, you're seeing scores in the 60s in terms of 65, maybe 70% of the students. And so a 15% growth over 2 years as we're implementing and making more robust our writing curriculum in particular, I would anticipate seeing that those go up. So you set the bar high. So 85% currently around 65 to 70, depending on the grade levels. That seems like a rigorous amount. Whereas the growth percentiles, so yes, I have some both for the whole school saying that we want 4th to 8th grade students demonstrating SGPs of at least average, right? That 40 to 60, but specifically for the subgroup, we want the growth to be on the high end of that average at 55. Does that make, does that
makes
help?
perfect sense. And
Okay.
that also helps me understand that 85% achievement mark is actually a really aggressive goal.
It is a really aggressive goal. If you look at the scores across Brookline historically, not just our school, compared to districts where they're really top literacy scores, the very top in a grade level would be around 82 to 83, 84%. So 85 is very rigorous, but I believe if you look at, and again, I'm excited for you to see some of the data coming out of our work over the last year in MCAS, but we saw some of this really tremendous growth in math, and I would account that to schedules, which again, if you look at some of my initiatives, building strong schedules, I believe is at the heart of making sure that we can implement an MTSS model well. And so, yeah, we did that in math. We implemented with fidelity the curriculum that was put into place. We had our specialists pull in, and we really focused on tier one, giving all children access as much as possible to that. That's what we need to do in literacy, and then figure out, and then what do you do for the kids who are still struggling? How do you double dose? What does that intervention look like? How do you target it for the needs that they represent? So in literacy, if they need fluency, what's the fluency program they need? If they need more decoding, we need to give them more decoding if their accuracy level is low. If it's comprehension based, it's going to look different. So again, that's that targeting what their individual needs are.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Vanessa. I think we've reached time for you and we're going to go to Candace. Can you just confirm you didn't put a dollar amount in for your budget, but can you estimate
Y'all
it?
are given the same discretionary funds.
Okay.
So, I mean, there is something, I mean, I would say that there probably needs to be a discussion. I have mentioned that, you know, Candace's school at 888. I'm right now leg in leg with Baker, Lawrence and Baker, you know, size wise. Should discretionary funds be exactly the same every school? Those would be questions I would be asking, and in terms of, you know, in order for me to run a homework club with a school of 650 kids and 50% high needs, are there different needs in terms of discretionary amounts? I'm not sure.
Thank
But
you.
then other schools have specialized programs, but then they also come with additional funding. So just some things I would throw out there in terms of thinking about discretionary budgets.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Candace. I think Vanessa, oh, there you go.
That's right, Mariah. We have Candace Whitmore, principal of the Florida Ruffin Ridley School, and then we'll have Saeed Ola, principal of Baker School.
All right. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Can you see everything okay?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Right, perfect. Just adjusting the screen on my side. So I'm excited to be here with you tonight. Yes, sharing all things Florida Ruffin Ridley School. And so I want to go ahead and start off in my presentation by definitely recognizing our caregiver reps, which is Erin Meyer, Elizabeth Bethevin, who's the co-chair, Vinay Guani, and Savan Shimoni. And then our teacher reps are Marianne O'Grady, who's our vice principal, Daniel Lipton, second grade, Yael Neiman Schubert, who was our EL teacher, and me, the co-chair. And so I'd like to start off by going into saying the highlights for year one. And one of the highlights is just a redesign of our school site council team and reestablishing our members. And so we had an election process. And so these members are new and they have signed on for 2 years. And so we had actually had our first meeting with our new members at the end of the year, and then we collaborated over the summer a lot. And so our next meeting is next week, actually. And so we're pretty excited about the work we started. Some other highlights from last year before we get into the improvement plan. And I think it's important so you can see the continuum of what we're doing for next year. So we have our creation of our middle school student council. We have a creation of our Welcome Back Week, which is SCL team comprised of teachers, general education teachers, special education teachers, world language, custodians, cafeteria monitors, cafeteria workers. All of this team of teachers have come together, or staff have come together to create an inclusive and welcoming environment for our students, intentionally being focused on social emotional learning for the first 4 days of school. And so I'll talk more into that with our improvement plan. And then next we have our creation of our math investigations team. We are doing, which is a part of my goals, a investigations reboot of our math curriculum for our K-5. And then we have a reconfigure of our academic schedules for K-5, especially with the shift with the world language. We wanted to make sure we were maximizing those times with our time on learning that we had this past spring. Then also the creation of middle school activities. This is based off of the Panorama survey, which is the SEL survey for students, which just provides a little more hands-on and a little more collaboration with a small group, with a clinician for these students to give them the skills that they need. And then last, the equity cycles that we've been partaking in with the Office of Educational Equity, which we're continuing to do. We've already started, but this included even having a restorative circle with our middle school staff last year, led by Ms. Hernandez. And so those are some of the highlights. And so now with the school improvement plan, this is where the school is moving. And let's see. All right. So our budgetary impact. So of course, we take into consideration the budgetary needs of the district that's provided by the town, state, and the federal government. We know these are made in the best intentions with our town managers and our school committee. And so any funds that are dedicated to the school, like our discretionary funds, that go directly toward our professional development, which this year is, also stipending our math leaders. We have our ELE that are coming to provide professional development, which is our English language learner teachers. And then also our homework center, which we will be having in support with our parent council. We're having after school every day from 2:30 to 3 in our library. And then, of course, our GSA, Young Scholars, our school plays, our athletic coaching positions. And then also the discretionary budget may be used to support some of our items for our therapeutic learning center. As you know, FRR, we are unique because we do house a therapeutic learning center. And so many of these things, many of our skills, we also try to branch into our general education classrooms. And so one of the things this year is just creating spaces in the classroom, like with giving kids, like creating, I say, like a take a break or just a thinking space. It depends on what grade level, how they articulate that space. But it's just charts about zones of regulation. It's also bean bags. It's also little fidgets. It's just things to give kids tools of how to stay in the classroom and also be able to take that break that they need and not miss out on any instruction. And then, of course, last, our percentage of high needs still exists. So we are a Title I school. We do receive Title I funding. We have the largest amount of English learners coming in. Currently, our numbers are 168 coming in. And then we also have students that with academically based disabilities, which we are at 159 and counting. And so all of this continues to increase. And so just looking at the budget, looking at what our therapeutic program may need, we're definitely getting more students into the program, but the number of staffing hasn't changed. And so it kind of changes the way we support. And so that's where the focus would be on the budgetary impact. And then next, our first goal, our SIP goal. And so we have the district goal. So I'll go into our strategic goal. Educators will ensure a comprehensive and strategic approach to implementing math and reading curriculum with a focus on professional development, data-driven instruction, and continuous monitoring to boost students' achievement. And so within this, we have our different initiatives. And so the first thing is just providing professional development that focuses on the science of reading. This is digging deeper into the phonological awareness of phonics, of fluency, vocabulary comprehension, and just the different parts of the brain and how students are activating those in order to read. And so we had our first PD this week, had a great turnout. And so this will be bi-weekly. As you know, this is a district-wide goal. And so, of course, our benchmarks is all K-5 staff. They will participate fully in the literacy training and then the new curriculum training beginning in February. Next, we have creating opportunities for teachers to collaborate in learning communities focused on literacy, allowing them to share strategies, review student work, and discuss progress toward goals. So prior to me coming to Floridia Ruffin Ridley, teachers were collaborating, but there were special educators, there were English language teachers, many people, the speech therapists, they were missing from being at these meetings and being at the table and collaborating together. And so this year we were able to reconfigure the K-5 schedule to allow for one consecutive block, a 30-minute block each week for all of these educators to come together, and each week is focused on a theme. And so one of the weeks we have is our literacy theme, which is the third week of the month. And so with this, our hope is by the end of 2026, we see an increase in our percentage of students that are meeting and exceeding grade level proficiency in literacy. And this will be looking at our MCAS, at our DIBEL scores. And so next, we have provide targeted professional development for our investigations. Yes, we're having investigations reboot. Last year, with meeting with teachers and meeting with staff and our math specialists, we realized that we had a lot of new teachers on staff and a lot of teachers that were not able to fully engage with professional development due to COVID when we brought in the math investigations. And so with this, we decided to get a team together to kind of lead this forefront, get teachers on board, do some instructional rounds, go into classrooms and seeing how other teachers, how we can support without it being evaluative. And so with this, we've actually started our PD on this, I believe, last March. And our next one is the off weeks of ELA. And so I know this is a big load for our staff, but I know how excited they are to kind of engage in this. And our new staff, our new teachers are like really excited because they're like, yes, everyone is in it with me. And so we can learn together. And so I'm not afraid to lean on my co-teachers or my grade level teachers in order to fully understand the curriculum. And so with that, sorry, the typo, so staff will participate in the math trainings. And there's also, we're looking at Desmos with middle school, and that's the curriculum for Desmos for 6-8. We're looking at it to see how we can kind of tie that into the specific investigations curriculum, like different pieces of it that tie into middle school. And so last, we have incorporate differentiated instruction strategies to meet the diverse learning needs of students within the investigation framework. This is, are we giving students hands-on? Are we letting students think? Are we pushing our students that are excelling? Are we pushing them to continue high order thinking? So this is where this comes in with that differentiation. And then by the end of the 26 school year, just seeing an increase in our percentage of students achieving proficiency in math by 15% on our state and district assessments. This is also looking at our unit assessments and collaborating each week. And so math teachers, our math specialists meet with all of our grade level special educators on week 2 of each month. So next, our district goal. So all Floridia Ruffin Ridley educators will provide open, consistent, accessible communication channels to strengthen the relationship between families and schools. I think this is a really big goal because, of course, last year coming into the school for the first year, finding out how teachers are communicating with families. Who's communicating with families? How often are you reaching out? It varied across the board, from kindergarten all the way to 8th grade. And so talking with the school improvement plan, with the school site council, the parents, we were like, let's come up with something with a system that it's going to engage parents and make sure that we know that we're reaching out to families. And so that's where our next goal, to create a clear and structured communication plan outlining when and how the school will share important information. I know that our kindergarten teachers send home daily, and it looks different for our 8th grade teachers that are like, hey, let's send out a once a month newsletter, but it's being consistent. And one way that I was able to kind of see where we are was looking at our parent coffee that we had last Friday. And so I asked, I had over 150 parents. And so my question I raised at them was, hey, raise your hand if you contacted your child's teacher or teachers yet. And so just looking at the number of hands that didn't go up reminded me to bring it back to the staff meetings like, hey, this is our goal, this is what we're doing. And so continuing to do that check-in will help with those benchmarks. And then by the end of the year, just seeing an increase in parent and family engagement in our school activities. Then also organizing workshops for our families. I know one thing we decided from our school site council is that we need to have these conversations and workshops teaching parents about digital literacy, about cell phone usage, about homework, mathematics. How can we push our kids at home? And how are we using the school's core values at home as well? And so, of course, this is measured by just an increase in family engagement. And then the use of multiple communication platforms, email, text message, robocall, newsletter, social media, school websites. I will say that last year I wasn't accessing the social media part of our school, and parents let me know, like, hey, we normally look at this. And so that's added on to the plan just to make me more cognizant of it, and allowing my teachers and staff to be more aware that we need to use multiple communication tools, even if it's printing out a handout and sending it home. So that is my goal number 2. And sorry if I'm talking fast.
Candace, I forgot to push my timer, but I think you're around 5 minutes left, maybe 4.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Thanks. All right. So our SIP goal number 3, and this is my meaty goal here. We've got a lot that's embedded in this goal. So it's good to have 5 minutes so I can take my time and kind of go through it. And so this is educators at Floridia Ruffin Ridley School will create a safe, positive, inclusive learning environment for all students and community members that affords them a high sense of belonging and celebrates our gains along the way. And so with this, our first is our creation of our school-wide cell phone policy that clearly outlines when and where students are permitted to use cell phones and smartwatches. This is also in collaboration with my school council, where my PTO actually funded our cases for students to put their phones in the morning, so that phones wouldn't be a distraction. And just getting feedback, looking at the various articles and news out there, I feel like more districts are leaning toward this. And so it was kind of great to pilot this for our 6th through 8th grade this year. Our 3 through 5, they just have the, the phones away policy. So the phones are off and away. And 6 through 8 are actually dropping off their phones. So that's a different change for this year. And so with this, we're looking at reducing the classroom distractions and improving in student engagement by 20%. And how we're using this data is just our minor and major infraction forms that we have created, which I'll get into with our PBIS. But it's how often are students being logged in for having phones out, or how often are we seeing students having phones in the hallway? And so that's how we are, engaging in those goals. And so next we have refine our school-wide positive behavior interventions and support, which is PBIS. This promote positive behavior and improve our school culture, kid culture, classroom culture, and adult culture. And this is getting everybody on board with our Bs, our implementation of our infamous Bs, and then rolling out this week just by clearly stating the expectations. And if you come into our school, you'll see our matrices and our chart and our expectations throughout every area of the school. And so we really were intentional with teaching these expectations and then awarding students for when they're displaying this. And this can come from receiving little Bs. PTO funded us a nice little beehive where the bees go, and we just highlight students for being caught doing what they're supposed to do. And then they're called on the announcements for Bees of the Week. And then we took it up a notch this year for our middle school with our MVBs. And so, yes. And so if it depends on how many MVPs you get your own, you can create your own incentive with our middle school vice principal and our clinicians. So next, and my goal for that is by the end of the school year, we reduce our disciplinary referrals by 30% and improve our overall student engagement. And then we have our integrated restorative practices into PBIS to address conflict and behavioral issues, focusing on repairing relationships and promoting accountability. This is with our residency, with our Office of Educational Equity. We're teaching all of our staff to be trained in restorative practices to use with students. And so this will involve the teachers actually being in those restorative practices with all of the students. And one of our 6th grade classrooms, we're fortunate they got to model a restorative practice for other students or other teachers to see. And so with this, we're also hoping to reduce our disciplinary referrals. And then last on here, almost last. Our Welcome Back Week. This is with our emphasis on 4 areas of focus that we focus on students on self-identity, appreciation for diversity for peers, strengthening our sense of belonging within our school community. And so with this, we had a week-long celebration where we come together, we talk about our expectations, our community meetings. We even had Benson Henry Institute here giving us mindfulness tools for the students to use throughout the year. We had a big assembly at the end of the week with our bees, just highlighting our unity. And then also our staff. We also had a staff roof deck kind of celebration of just coming together for the year. And with this, it involved us introducing all the staff. It was so amazing to see our custodians get on the mic and introduce themselves, our cafeteria workers saying, hey, this is me. And so the students just come in knowing every adult and knowing that we're all there for them and providing a welcoming environment. That's Welcome Back Week. There's more to come. We still have community meetings that we've aligned each month. We also have social emotional themes that align, which I'll get into our implementation of our evidence-based SEL curriculum, second step, and then the implementation of our SEL team, which we kind of wove together with our Welcome Back Week. And so we just make this a focus for the whole entire school. And of course, our data is, of course, looking at the panorama data and gauging how students feel about entering our school, how families feel about sending their kids to school, how teachers and staff are interacting with one another. And I think this is a big part of just creating that culture of belonging and care and trust that we're looking forward to. And so I think this is it. So I give time for questions. Woo!
I think we're basically at time. So thank you, Candace, for that. If there's any burning questions, we'll take them, and otherwise we will thank you for the presentation.
All right.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Felt like I was on Shark Tank for a minute. Trying to get it all out.
You did it. You did great.
You.
Margaret, are you next?
Next, we have Saeed Ola,
Oh, that's right. Thank you.
Principal of Baker School.
Hello, everybody. How are we? Candace, you made it Candace, it's hard coming after Candace on this night, but I'll try my best. I'm going to try to share my screen. It's been a minute since I've done this, so bear with me. All right. Can you all see the screen, my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Oh, I don't want to do that. Don't want to do that. All right. So again, good evening. I'm Saeed Ola, the principal at the Baker School, and here is our school improvement plan for this coming year. First off, I want to thank our school council members, Gareth Lawson, Scott Littman, Dylan Rossi, and Leslie Tomian. Also, I neglected to put on this list our amazing vice principals, Josh Howe and Allison Henry, who have been very instrumental in providing feedback and information on all things Baker that are important for me and us to know. Similarly to lots of other principals who've spoken before, when we think about our budgetary impact, actually, let me take a step back and actually talk about some of the things that were great and to celebrate from last year. One of the big things that I love about Baker is that we're steeped in tradition, and we have a lot of regular community assemblies that happen every month. We just just had our first convocation to officially open up the school year. That happened last Thursday. So it's great to see everybody all on the blacktop outside, hearing from our 8th graders talk about our school motto of work hard, be kind, help others, and build relationships, and what that means for them. We have lots of performances that happen as well. So we've had our Bugs play and our Carnival of the Animals play that happens in the spring. We have our middle school play that also happens in the spring in around March. I think I've seen some of you out there at that performance. We also, another thing I'm really excited about and also taps into some of our goals, is that last year we did a faculty book read on Zaretta Hammond's book, Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain. It was a great opportunity to really think about how do we make sure we're reaching and teaching all of the students in our classrooms. How are we scaffolding our work to make sure that they are ready for rigor? And we also, on a logistical level, have also brought in and implemented a staff resource guide that has all things that anybody coming to Baker needs to know about processes, procedures, and practices. So with that, we'll jump into our budgetary impact. So as you know, we take into consideration the needs of the district with the funds provided by the town, state, and federal government. All the decisions are made with the best interest of children in mind. That is how we make our decisions at Baker. I have tasked all staff to be student-centered. Any decision that we're making, is this the best thing for the students that we are talking about? As previously mentioned by other principals, there is some small discretionary funds that are at the disposal of each principal, and that goes towards either professional development and stipends for staff who are supporting activities. We have a number of different student affinity groups. We have the plays that I mentioned earlier, and then a number of athletic coaching positions. Similarly, we also have a high number of we have an increasing number of high needs students. Over the course of the years, that number is slowly creeping up towards 50%. We're just underneath that right now. And we have special educators and paraprofessionals that are here to support that, and that need grows. So we may need to be also able to provide additional supports for that. Also added to this is the fact that the school population is also growing, and given that Baker's an older building, and we're thinking about how do we make sure we have the space needs, or that we are able to meet the needs of the building given the space that we have. So that's another thing that we are also thinking about and trying to figure out contingency plans for that as well. Next slide is, so our school, we have 3 goals here that we're looking at. The first one, in line with the district goal of increasing achievement for students, we are going to be working to implement consistent progress monitoring and data analysis mechanisms for students to make sure we are able to identify who needs intervention when they need that intervention. And looking at that, we're going to continue with our Heggerty implementation and foundations. We're going to provide professional development for educators to talk about the foundational underpinnings of the literacy program that the district will be selecting. So this is the biweekly literacy meetings for K-5 staff that many of my other colleagues have talked about. So we just had our first meeting this Tuesday. We had a very large show up. I think about everybody was there, which was great. We're going to continue to utilize M-Class and STAR universal assessment tools with the goal of also in the next year of being able to increase that to grades 7 and 8. Right now, that's in 4 through 6. We're going to continue practicing continue practicing monitoring middle school achievement of students. The idea of looking at report cards and progress reports and seeing how students are doing, and what are we putting in place to be able to better meet their needs? Or where are we falling short, and how can we fill in those gaps? We have a great opportunity for teachers and school counselors to meet to talk about how students are doing, what are challenges going up. We want to continue this practice and potentially bolster it if we need to. And looking at how we can communicate with families with relation to that. Our second goal, we're looking at this idea of culturally responsive communication and engagement with families. At Baker, we're going to look at cultivating this culturally responsive practices and providing educators with the resources and supports so that there is an increased feeling of connectedness and engagement among students, families, and staff. So one of the things we want to make sure educators have the ability and feel confident in is their ability of addressing and integrating any addressing cultural diversity in their teaching and in their practice. I mentioned earlier that we did a faculty book read on culturally responsive teaching in the brain. So new staff, we have about 10 new staff members join our school this year. So all of them also got a copy of Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain. This idea of having a educational, pedagogical baseline that all teachers at the Baker School understand this concept, so that when there are future conversations about how things are going in the classroom, we can refer back to that. It's a resource to refer back to in terms of how can I better meet the needs of the students? Who else can I reach out to have that conversation, and that we're all using the same language. Another thing that I'm really proud of at Baker is that we have an equity and diversity committee of parents that have put on a number of different events throughout the year. Most notably is our Culture Fest that happens in May. This is an opportunity in place to be able to discuss opportunities and professional development for families to engage with each other and with the school around this idea of feeling connected and valued and seen. In our third goal, we're looking at this idea of connecting more with families and the community to promote this sense of belonging. This is how we're going to, so what at Baker we're going to do is we're going to continue to enhance the communication structures that exist so that everyone knows what is our practices and procedures. They feel seen, valued, and safe. And we're all using the same language. So what that looks like is regular communication with families that shares information about what's going on at the school. How do I, if I need to know, who do I need to reach to if I have a concern about my student? Who do I reach out to? How often can I expect a certain communication from my teachers? We also want to make sure those communications are provided in the preferred language of the family. So we're looking into how can we make sure that happens. There's a number of different newsletters that offer translations. How do we make sure that families get that? Also, is email the best option? Should we be looking at text messages? Should we be looking at different modes, social media? How are we able to communicate with families so they get the information that they need when they need it? Connected to that is updating our website and also our handbook. I've noticed that the handbook that we had hasn't been updated in a number of years, so we're going to be working on updating our student and families handbook so that way it includes all the practices and procedures that families need to know, students need to know, and they know how to best engage with us as a school. And that is Baker School. And I think I might be over time, but I'm not sure.
Nope, you're good. You got 5 minutes left, so we might
Okay,
claw
so I'm
back
gonna turn it over to you
sometime.
guys.
Yeah. Are there questions from the members? Okay.
I guess I
Well,
yield my time to the chair.
that's right. Thank you, Saeed, for a shock and awe that that made everyone speechless. So we appreciate it.
There we go.
Have
Thank
a great
you. Have a
night.
good night.
And next,
Betsy, is it
Margaret
Margaret?
is, yeah, Margaret Eberhard,
Okay.
our principal of the Brookline
Is
Early
is
Education
there
Program.
is the high school next, or who's next after?
After that will be Anthony at the high school, and then Jamie from Pierce.
Okay. So we're running a little behind?
We're kind of caught up. Margaret was scheduled to be at 6, so we're 3 minutes behind.
Okay, great.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here this evening. I'm so excited to share the draft of our school improvement plan for BEEP. Let me share my screen. Here we go. Hold on. All right. There we go. All right. Can you all see the screen? 2 thumbs up. All right. All right. It's great to see you all tonight. All right. So here's a draft of our school improvement plan. We have not yet had our first site council meeting this year. We'll have it in October. And I'm really excited to begin again this year. These are our school site council members. We have 3 parent representatives from the variety of the BEEP locations. And then we have a few educators, including our physical therapists and a speech and language pathologist. So it's very exciting and a very diverse group of people as part of the BEEP site council. I'm going to highlight, I'm not going to read these out to you. You can all read them all later on. And I put some links in here if you're interested in learning a little bit more about some of the work that we did last year in BEEP. But, you know, the most exciting thing that happened last year was that we opened 3 classrooms at Driscoll. The most exciting thing that happened so far this year is that we took over the Driscoll School by adding some more classrooms there. We're back at the Hayes School. We have 2 at Ridley and 1 at Runkle. So we moved out of Clark. We're sad to see that go, but we're very excited to be back at Hayes. and be part of that community again. And I would encourage you all to mark your calendars for May. I don't have the date on here. I probably should have shared it, to come to our BEEP Inclusion Fun Run. I am wearing the BEEP Inclusion Fun Run Matters t-shirt, designed by the children. You can see the design right here. Little says love in sign language. And we have a great little fun run at the Lynch Center, and kids run around the Lynch Center and they get little medals, and they feel like they won the marathon. Of course, one of the biggest highlights from 2023, 2024 was the decision to move BEEP to a school day schedule. And we have been implementing that for the last couple of weeks, and thumbs up to the children and the adults who are implementing the schedule. So here's a slide about the budgetary impact. BEEP is obviously different. It's its own little unique entity in the sense that we have a revolving fund. So always you're thinking about the revolving fund, and we're going to be revisiting with a finance subcommittee what the tuition review for 25-26 as we look at the revenue for this year and think about the budgetary impact of moving to school day, having a small extended day program, materials and supplies, combination of general funds and the revolving fund. So that'll be something that we'll be talking about in the near future. And these are just some of the things that go into those things to consider: the curriculum materials, professional development, and then building the costs for music and art into the revolving fund, which we've done for the last 2 years. So we aligned our goals for our school improvement plan with the goals of the district's strategic plan. And so our first goal, obviously, is aligns with the district's goal of having high achievement and engaging curriculum evidence-based instruction for all children, for all students. And the way we do that in BEEP is to have a solid tier 1 curriculum across all 24 classrooms in the program. And so you will see as we go through the slides, and you can click on some of the links that are in some of the slides, what are those evidence-based curriculum that we're using across all BEEP classrooms, and how are we measuring progress, monitoring progress for all of our students. And if you go here to this slide, you can see that we are looking at we are using a variety of ELA curriculums that align with the ones the district is using. So Hegarty and Foundations are the two that we use for ELA. We are looking very closely at the focus on pre-K curriculum out of Boston, which I included a link here for you to go in. It's really an engaging curriculum, and I encourage you to go look at it. It's really well done and well thought out, and it's free to all programs in the Commonwealth, and really provides a really solid tier 1 base for which you can build a curriculum. We use Second Step in BEEP, which is social emotional learning curriculum as well. We also use the pyramid model, which is part of the PBIS that Candace mentioned, and we are also part of that. You will see in our third slide. We use We Play, which is out of Northeastern, which is a physical fitness activity curriculum that you can use. And we have developed a PD plan that will go over the next 2 years that came out of a survey that we did with the teachers in June of 2024. And you can see how we're going to monitor these goals over the next couple of years. And many of these curriculums have their own assessments attached to them. Hegarty does, Foundations does. We created one to combine the two of them. The pyramid model has one, teaching pyramid observation tool, and so does We Play. So you can use those assessments to gauge how you're implementing these curriculums and monitor the progress of children through that. What's really nice about We Play is that it is purposely designed for inclusion, to support the inclusion of students living with autism in physical activities and build peer relationships with their classmates. Our second goal aligns with the district's goal of making that big community engagement plan. And of course, at BEEP, we have an advantage here because we are the lead agency for the Coordinated Family Community Engagement Grant. And through this grant, it provides many opportunities for us to engage with families and to affirm their role as the primary educators in their children's life, right? And so through the activities that we do with the funding that's provided with these grants, we support parents in developmental parenting. We model for parents activities that you can do at home to support literacy, to support math, to support science, and particularly the language that you can use with children to support the development of social emotional skills. And here's just a couple examples as you look through here. We offer Saturday programming. We offer weekly playgroups for families in the community. We have the Parent-Child Plus Home Visiting Program for the children that are younger, not able yet to come to school. And we use normed screening tools to support parents to see, like, where might my child need some support in what developmental areas. And that tool is called the Ages and Stages Questionnaire. And we also use family surveys, and in BEEP, the Panorama survey that is used by all the other programs. So this grant really gives us a lot of opportunities to build these early connections for families, not only with BEEP, but with the district. And that's a really nice thing that we can do. This year, we're going to offer 5 family cafes that address family concerns. And this came out of our site counts from last year, along developmental milestones and how to support positive behavior at home. And then our last final goal in terms of our strategic goals that align with the district school is to really continue our work with the pyramid model and our DESE coach. We have a coach from DESE, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. She works with us monthly, and we have been working with her since 2019. We've been holding on to this grant, this pyramid model through the pandemic. It hasn't been easy, but you can see that there's a lot of really wonderful objectives that really align with the district's strategic plan in terms of fostering inclusion, social emotional development, belonging practices, addressing disparities, right? And then there are actual ways to measure those things through the benchmarks of qualities, right? And we have some actual, I'm going to go to the next slide so you can see. When you go down here, you can click at that on that link, and it will take you to the actual tool that's used that we use in BEEP. And this graph shows you how we've kind of progressed towards meeting those benchmarks since 2019. You can see that we dipped a little bit in the green last year, so I need to figure out how we went down in that, but we'll get to that part eventually. But it really is a wonderful opportunity to be part of this and to have a DESE coach to be supporting the work as well. So we feel very lucky about that. And our last goal is school day BEEP. It is not tied to the strategic plan, but of course it is a very important goal for BEEP because it requires us to really think about how the whole school day implementation is going and the impacts of that on the district. And so you can see here that I just put some basic initiatives like the implementation of it. We're going to be thinking already about the enrollment for next year and lottery considerations for next year. We have to think about the budget implications, and we have to monitor the enrollment and the cost and see how that's all playing out over time. We have to think about after school options because this continues to be district-wide a need for families, right? And if we can continue to run our own BEEP program, and what does that look like in terms of impact for budget and that we're having enough revenue from that. And then of course it's the ongoing conversation around BEEP spaces, right? And the leases and classroom spaces, and what does that look like moving forward? I would like to thank all of you for supporting this initiative. The first couple of weeks of school have gone really, really well. I'm grateful for all the sunny days because I think sunny days and warm weather make everyone happier. But the children are doing well, the educators are doing well, the parents are doing well. And I really feel like it was a great move for the program. And so I'm very grateful for your support, which was, obviously the way that it happened. So, and that's the end of my presentation and the slides. I didn't read too much from the slides because I figured if you had direct questions, you could ask me. I'm happy to chat a little bit about enrollment right now if you have any questions about our current state of enrollment for BEEP. And I'm going to stop sharing right now so you can ask any questions you might have.
Members?
I hope that was enough. What numbers? Sure. We are at 200.
No, I said members. Hold on. But you can.
Oh, members. Okay.
Yeah. I think Suzanne was going to ask a question.
Yeah,
Yes,
actually,
Suzanne.
I had a couple of questions, Margaret.
Yes, ma'am.
Where are we in terms of capacity? Are we under capacity, over capacity in terms of enrollment?
So we are currently at 272 students, right? So we're at a good number. And if you look at the district enrollment sheet, which I printed from yesterday, you can look at each location where the enrollment is. We were very low at Putterham when we first started, but now we're up to 49 students, which is just a little bit below the 53 that we have at Driscoll. So any openings that we have right now are really special education openings that we might be holding. And we do have some students that have applied looking for some seats through financial aid. And so that's really that. But we have 197 tuition paying students right now. Our goal to meet the cost was 190. So we're 7 above that right now. So I'm excited about that. And we enrolled another family today. We have 35 financial aid seats right now. And we have the number of students receiving the whole program, which includes our sub-separate program through special ed, is 40. And then we have other students that receive services only and also receive just services in the program. So right now the enrollment is looking strong and good.
Yeah, thank you. You really know your numbers. I appreciate it.
Well, I knew you might ask. I didn't want to not
Yeah.
have them.
Could you just say a few words about the literacy play group? What is that?
So the literacy play group is run through the Coordinate Family Community Engagement Grant. So Jenny True is the coordinator of that, and she holds 2 play groups each week. Families come with their children, they read stories, and we talk about dialogic reading, ways that you can support the development of reading skills at home, but reading stories and how you focus on vocabulary and how you focus on words and it's in a very playful way. And then those playgroups also have music. So the goal of those playgroups is really to support parents in that area in early literacy development, same as the Parent Child Plus, right? In Parent Child Plus, they actually get books and materials that support those skills at home. And then you measure those progresses through the Ages and Stages questionnaire and through data that you can take every month and that you have to submit through the Department of Early Education and Care. So it's really supporting parents in developing those skills of conversation and vocabulary development at home with their children.
But these aren't students that are enrolled in the BEAT program.
Not yet, no. They're a little bit young.
Okay,
Some
great.
of them then will graduate up into BEAT, yes.
Yeah.
And then the program that we offer on the weekends, the art and the science, those are preschool age children across Brookline, not just BEAT students, but anyone who wants to attend.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Margaret. That's a great program.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Before I call in Perry, can you just clarify one thing on the numbers you mentioned, Margaret?
Yes.
You said that we have 40 tuition slots, but we only ended up actually filling 35 of the 40. Did I understand that
Correct.
correctly?
Yeah, we still have some that we could offer, right? We have 2 out still right now. I think the hardest part with the financial aid piece is getting the location that you're looking for.
I see. But you're talking with BHA as well and other partners to. Okay.
Exactly. Oh yeah, yeah. And in fact,
Great.
I have some really good news. Could I share something really good news with you guys?
Of course.
The Trust Center for Early Learners now accepts some vouchers.
Oh, good. That's great.
Yeah. So that's a great
wonderful.
news for the
Yes.
for the test plan
Perry,
department,
go
yeah.
ahead. And then I think we'll move on to the next one after you.
Sure.
Great,
Perry.
thanks. Perry Grossman on the advisory committee, school
Hi, Perry.
subcommittee. I just wanted to ask, you said the full day program is not connected to the strategic plan, but it seems like it could be, or it would
Yeah.
support bringing all students up, which is part of the strategic plan,
Yes.
right?
Thank you for pointing that out. That's true. I just didn't, when I was thinking about it, I didn't like weave it back into the full strategic plan, but that's a very good point. Thank you so much for pointing that out to me.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thanks, Margaret.
Thank you guys. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night and thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anthony.
Great. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me, school committee members and district leaders. How nice to follow Margaret to do the bookends of the public schools of Brookline. So I want to begin with gratitude and an admission. So thank you to my school council. They've been, for the 9 years I've done this work, been a really wonderful, varying iterations, a wonderful sounding board and partners amidst a building project, thinking about access to high-level courses, school safety and access control, and focusing on school belonging. I also want to acknowledge I did not nearly as regularly convene my school council last year, which I realize is a responsibility of mine. So I feel the need to share that with school committee members, and without excuse, but with a promise to be better this year. So I have reached out to my school council members, shared the draft that I'm sharing tonight, so that they know what we're sharing. So let's do celebrations. So many performing arts. We just always have myriad performances. I would just say Chicago, the production of Chicago was incredibly, incredibly good and well attended last year. We won a second straight cross-country championship. Clubs are a key part of belonging at Brookline High School, and we've moved our club fair earlier the last couple of years and brought it into the quad. So if you're anxious about tight spaces and lots of people, it's a little much. But to see that many young people encouraging others to join their clubs, creating new clubs, it's really, really powerful. And then I would just highlight faculty and staff collaboration. I'll speak to it a little bit more later, but we identified a couple common practice areas around attendance and tardies and around PEDs, and are really trying to get teachers on board with engaging in similar or the same practices. So I'm grateful and want to celebrate that work. Let me just make sure. So Jody rightly asked for us to share a few key goal areas. So priority 1 is within teaching and learning. And we're going to continue to work on the ninth grade responding to lit humanities course, so that unleveled English course. And what we're trying to work on this year is to add an earned honors model to that, so that there would be a pathway to honors. And I don't think, just a preview of what is to come probably later this year, and we can provide more focus within curriculum subcommittee or the entire school committee. I don't think that we're going to bring back to school committee a proposal to fully expand the pilot. I think where we are now is we're working on a really good course. We believe strongly in it. And we believe that over time, one, students vote with their feet and, sign up for courses. And so I think our plan is to continue to work on our ninth grade English courses, but not bring it back to school committee to say we want to do full rollout. So we'll be working on that ninth grade English course. Happy to come to curriculum subcommittee and talk through that, as I think we've discussed before. One area that I think is really important.
Anthony, can I interrupt you? I just want to make sure we're not supposed to be seeing a presentation.
Oh my gosh, I thought that.
Okay, that's what I was like.
No, I thought we had all of our presentations. I'm so sorry. I thought that we had submitted our presentations and they were on a slide deck. Oh my gosh.
Well, you're not showing it. So, or like, if no one else is showing it, so if you're talking to something, we can't see whatever it is you're talking to.
Okay, I misunderstood. I thought that the presentations were going to be up.
They're posted online, as long as you're okay with it not being shared on the screen.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I misunderstood.
Okay.
That's my bad. Well, you're not looking at what I think you're looking at. But
do you want to pull up what you think we should be looking at?
I have them on two different computers now. So if I have a 10 to 15 minute window, I'd rather just.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you should have interrupted, because I imagined there was something that you were all looking at. So one thing that has been hard to move forward is our vision of a graduate, which is a look at our graduation requirements and what we want from all learners. And NEASC certainly flagged this as an area where the district needs to have a vision of a graduate that isn't just graduation requirements, but is a community-wide, district-wide conversation about, in the end, graduation requirements. But throughout the experience, what do we want kids to know, to be able to do, how we want them to be able to think, how we want them to be able to manage their emotions, develop relationships. So I think that is a part and a distinct part of the strategic plan. And we've had meetings, our NEASC accreditation coordinators and Jody and Gabe, to talk about moving that forward this year. A second goal area that you're not looking at that I am is around community and connections. And it's really about communication. We've tried to, I tend to think I'm a decent communicator and we're decent communicators as a school, but adding SMORE that automatically gets translated into many languages and goes also, to all district students, including students who are in out of district placements. So we're building on that with a ninth grade newsletter that Astrid Allen and Lisa Redding began last year. I would also say we're looking carefully at our interim progress report. So we have 4 times where we are supposed to give really good feedback to students and families about their performance. The reality is some families don't open the interim progress report, and so don't have that feedback. And we can identify open rates and determine who is not opening their IPRs. And I mean, it seems odd, but we could also send an additional email or have additional interventions to try to make sure that families who are not opening the IPRs know, especially in the case where a student might be struggling. And then another component of that is working with our faculty, who are generally expert, but I think especially for newer faculty, we need to give them practice and support in writing good progress reports. Like, for instance, I don't want to hear a description of a course for a year. We need to have specific feedback for kids that is actionable about how they're doing, what they're doing well, and what they need to do better. So we're using some faculty and staff time around IPRs. I think the other thing, I would just pull back the curtain and say that during COVID, we had an additional structure to sort of as a safety net called critical updates. And it was a source of conflict within the faculty and staff, because we essentially added new work without taking other things off the plate. And so we're not providing critical updates, and we're trying to lean into really good progress reports and following up and trying to be transparent about what the actions the student support team or educators will take when kids are struggling, or they have, say, quick dissent in a course and suddenly are doing poorly. We will continue to focus on attendance, both on tardies. I mean, our numbers were amazing, how many tardies we reduced, our tardies reduced last year. And I think our attendance across the district is generally pretty good. It's a key indicator. So we'll be focused on that as a faculty and staff and with families. Just looking and seeing. And then I guess the other area that I would talk about is faculty and staff collaboration with school administration. We had a collaborative process between our faculty council and our administrative council, and then brought it to the entire faculty to say, what are the 3 priority areas that we want to work on? And they are, probably not surprisingly, communication, workload, and morale. And so we're trying to lean into those. In some ways, the removing of critical updates was a move towards workload. And then communication varies. It's last year, our faculty and staff struggled in some ways around hot topics around the world and feeling comfortable communicating or being communicated with and supporting, like feeling as though they were supported. And so we're adding, as scary as it might sound, some open comment periods within meetings in smaller groups. We're having our administrative council members facilitate what we call community tables and faculty meetings. I'm having office hours each week. So the idea is, let's talk about it. Let's not write emails on our conference and then drop the mic. Those are some areas. And again, I'm sorry for not having the presentation shared behind you. What questions could I answer?
Thanks, Anthony. We have, I think, about 3 minutes left before the next presentation. Jesse, go ahead.
Hi, Anthony. I had a question for you that's come up through listening to the prior presentations this afternoon and evening. Most of the elementary schools that we've heard from, maybe with one exception, reported close to 50% of their students on IEPs and growing. What do you see when these students get to the high school, and how does a high school respond?
Just to clarify, I think it was 50% high needs, which is a mix of
Right.
IEP, English language learner, and low income.
Right. I think our overall number would be somewhere around 18%. I think, well, Jesse, that's a great and huge question. I mean, I think the beauty of having so many wonderful feeder schools is that, you know, there are specialized programs across the district. We have a tremendous amount of programs and programming and staff. I mean, the support of the school committee and district leaders has been huge. So we certainly, you know, I mean, the reality is, I worry that our standard level classes have a much higher percentage of students on IEPs than our honors and advanced level. And so trying to figure out how we can support, and that's a huge generalization. Obviously, there is a spectrum. I think, you know, I think a concern that we have discussed within the district is there are times when students in middle school are being pulled out to receive services, and they're being pulled out oftentimes from world language classes, that's going to be different given a different world language structure. But I think I worry about kids losing opportunities for support they need, but that schools in a pinch pulling students out from instructional time. And so we see that as an issue within world language. Again, that landscape has somewhat changed. But overall, I feel like we have so many wonderful programs and such a huge community and a community of care that I think we're well set up to support the many different students with many different needs who arrive at our door each day.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I would guess Robin Fabiano could give a more pointed answer too, and I'd love to continue the conversation.
Suzanne?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Anthony. Anthony, could you just, if you don't mind, just say again a little bit about your thinking going forward on that English ninth grade program?
Sure. I mean, I think we did not do a great job. We did not do a good job of communicating potential changes, communicating about the pilot. I think the teachers did a wonderful job. I think one need we heard from some students and some parents is that an honors designation. And so we are interested in developing an earned honors model so that a student could take a responded to humanities heterogeneously grouped class, but still have a pathway to honors, doing X amount of additional work or a different type of project. So the idea is to develop that model and have it, work on it this year so that that course would include that moving forward. I think the idea is actually to try to do it this year. Many schools with an earned honors model, so students wait, say, a quarter and get a sense, and hopefully there's lots of messages of, you can take on this challenge, you can do this work, and then beginning in second quarter, they say, you know what, I'm going to go for the honors credit, and so I'm going to take that menu. So in some ways, it's a natural progression from a heterogeneously grouped class, and we're interested in exploring it. And I think what I'm not saying yet is that we're sort of putting a pause on reimagining ninth grade. And that doesn't mean we're not going to continue to think about and work on access issues. We absolutely are. But I think we need to slow down and make sure we have the community support and have educated and supported our community in a way that helps them be ready for change.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Please.
Anthony, can I just ask really quickly, the elementary schools, and I think we heard we're moving away from this model, but historically they've had sort of $10,000 in discretionary funding for the principal. Does the high school also have $10,000, or what do you
That
have?
was my question too.
Oh, look.
I was puzzled by that component of the presentation tonight. So I don't really know what the $10,000 of discretionary funds are on it, and that could be my own ignorance, but I don't, we received a small number of PTO monies that we use towards certain events and supporting students, but I don't know about the $10,000 in discretionary funds, where that lives.
Okay. I feel like also you have a lot more like designated student activity accounts and things like
Absolutely.
that. Yeah, way more than's happening in the elementary schools. So
I should say, thanks, Mariah, for the cue. Certainly our student government through the budget gets monies each year and then distributes them to clubs who make requests or advocate for those funds. So agreed that we're a well-funded institution, and I feel like we also have the Innovation Fund, a very large PTO. BF supports everybody, but I don't.
okay.
I'm gonna stop.
Carolyn, last question before we let Anthony go and turn to Jamie. You're on mute.
Thank you. Thanks for all of that, Anthony. And this is sort of a broader budget question, but because it was a major piece of the school committee's guidelines for the budget development for FY25, and recognizing that the dust is still settling on kids moving classes, I wonder if you can just give us a snapshot on whether the budget is satisfying what you need in terms of your staffing for keeping class sizes where you want them.
Thanks for asking, Carolyn, and thanks to everyone here and to past school committee members also for voting in support of 7.0 additional FTE. I would say our class sizes are certainly much better than last year. We do not have the 35 student Calc BC class or 33 in one of the advanced Spanish classes. We do have some larger classes, but much more. I was meeting with our science coordinator, interim science coordinator today, and looking at course numbers. And there are some larger classes than I would like, anatomy and physiology at 28, a couple of those classes, but much more the sections are 20 in honors biology or honors chemistry, more like 25, 26, 24. So things look much better. For what it's worth, I have not, knock on all wood that you can find, received a flood of emails of concern, and I have not been copied on them to school committee members. So I feel like things are better. You know, some teachers, our anatomy and physiology teacher is feeling the pinch of a large class, and things are shaking out right now as students are able to move. But in general, we built a good schedule. We started earlier. We were ahead of the market in terms of, or at least at the right time to get really good teachers. I feel great about our new teachers, and I feel good about the funding and support of FTE. So thank you.
Thanks for that update.
You're welcome.
Have a good night.
Yep. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a nice night.
Jamie, last but not least.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for accommodating my late time. We had open house here tonight for our kindergarten through 5th grade. That started at 4 and ended at 6, and it was 6:20 before I had the building clear. So I will share a slide deck with you in just a minute. But before I do, I want to take the audience time to give a shout out in no particular order to the heroes who got these buildings open and running this year. As you'll see in my presentation, a lot of our time in the last couple of years has been spent, even through our school improvement plan, preparing for this move. And without our custodians, Karen and Sarah, the teachers who put in so many hours of work to make their classrooms beautiful and welcoming, parents who have been breathtakingly flexible as we have adjusted to all things split campus, including buses and walking kids, in some cases quite a bit further than people are used to, coordinating childcare in 2 different locations, all incredible. Also to our hiring managers this year who really helped to push through hiring so that we were able to start the school year nearly fully staffed. And that made a huge difference, especially for us split between 2 buildings. And then to OTL, who has been incredibly supportive these last couple of weeks with a couple of lingering staffing things that were unrelated to anything anybody could have done differently. But I've really felt everybody's support showing up here at Pierce, including Margaret, in fact, who I see still sitting here, who has shown up to help me with a couple of things already this year, and I am deeply grateful. So that said, I will share my screen. It's been a minute since I've done this, so. All right. Can you see the slideshow? Is the question. Yes? Okay.
Yes.
I can only see your faces, so bear with me here. Wave or shout or something if you need to get my attention. And can I change slides? Okay, so our school council did convene last year many times. I think probably every month we convened, and I am so grateful to Bernadine, Molly, Brad, Susie, and Emily, who are our parent reps, and then to Tracy, Dave, Beth, and Anne, who are our teacher reps. I am the fifth staff member to get us to that 5 balance. We are doing elections this fall for one of those seats. So one of those people may turn over. In terms of budgetary impacts, some things to know that we do require some funding to do the summer work that will support action planning to support our struggling students, that will give grade level teams time to co-plan for both win and integration with our new curriculum, and then to review student data. That work was originally in our plan for the summer of 2024, but we did not have the funding for that. So some of those items were not completed and were shifted into next summer. We also want to name that rebuilding a meaningful practice of instructional rounds will require substitute coverage beyond what we can staff in-house. So as we give teachers the opportunity to participate in instructional rounds, we'll leverage administrators and other support staff. But of course, a string of absences on a day can bring that all toppling down, and you hate to have teachers plan and prepare for instructional rounds only to be unable to cover them. So we would need some funding in the future for substitute coverage there. I am going to continue requesting additional workshop funds to support staff attendance, specifically at PLC trainings. We do have a pretty robust line for professional development at $3,500, and that is significant, but conference costs have escalated quite a lot. And so while I used to be able to send people for $150 or $199 a person to a conference, that number is now much closer to $400 or $500 per person. And that's for a local one-day conference. So they've really increased in price significantly. And then I'm also hoping that we can secure some funding to support some school day busing of students to a joint location for an annual whole school connection. While you will see that we are going to be proposing or planning for a lot of evening and afternoon and weekend events, not all of our students can participate in that. So the only way to truly bring our community together is to do it during a school day, and that will require some transportation costs. So in terms of our school improvement plan, we actually have 2 strategic objectives identified that tie with the district goal. I'm actually going to pause and let you read them because A, I'm tired, and B, you are all capable readers. So if you were here last year, you'll see that these are a continuation of the work we did in our last school improvement plan. We are making steady progress toward both of these objectives, but they are still areas where the data tells us we need to continue our focus. So I highlight 3 of the strategic initiatives that appear in this past or this coming school year as a part of this school improvement plan. So the first is providing structured time on those Friday collaboration time meetings for teachers who want an opportunity to meet and think about using data to plan their instruction. And then also leveraging our Tuesday faculty meeting time. We did that several times last year. We had hoped to have some summer funding for this year that was not available. We have moved that to next summer. And what we want to see, obviously, is increased evidence of state, district, and classroom data being used in planning for instruction. We also know that our MCAS data is very predictable, but so is our data before MCAS. And so what we had hoped to do this past summer, but really hope we'll get the funding to do next summer, is to bring teachers together to create plans for our 3rd grade students who have already been receiving intervention and who, based on our internal assessments, are at risk of scoring not meeting on ELA or math. And the hope is that through the creation of those action plans and then implementation of them, our in-house assessments will show an increase in student literacy and math skills during the 2025-2026 school year. So this is a target for next summer if we secure the funding for that work. And then continuing to provide professional development to staff to support their confidence using student work at the center of PLCs to discuss student progress, the new curriculums we're rolling out, and also pedagogy. And again, what we're looking for is increased comfort with staff-led PLCs. So those professional learning communities are really integral to teachers being able to have thought partners. Teaching, while a very, very public practice in many ways, is also very isolating. And so giving teachers opportunities to work with other teachers with the appropriate training and support is really critical, both for their feeling effective and also for student outcomes. Next, we have our second school improvement plan goal, which is focused on communication. As you might imagine, during a move, communication has been super, super important. So this has been in our SIP for the last several cycles. I'll give you a moment to read that. And then here we wanted our families to all feel welcomed into each new building. So our target was to make sure that all of our family members were invited to no fewer than 3 events between August and November of 2024. Tonight we actually hit our 3rd event, so that was really exciting. And we do have a 4th one planned for later in October. So a huge shout out to the PTO for helping with some of these events as well. It's been really powerful to have families together in our buildings. We also want to make sure families and staff feel informed about the Pierce renovation. I have been sending and will continue to send communications at least monthly. I do want to say transparently, I have been less engaged with the building project itself in the last month or so. It's been a lot getting 2 buildings up and running, and I am looking forward to dipping back in, but I trust the project team is managing things well and will reach out to me if they need me. And of course, we have Helen there spearheading things as well when I'm not able to be there. And then the last strategic initiative will be coming to families later this month, which is just making sure that families and staff have a way to share any logistical challenges that are lingering after the first few weeks of school. So toward the end of this month, we will be sending out a survey so families can share their challenges, as can staff, and we can continue to try to be responsive to those. And then our last goal is also tied to the move. I'm sure you're sensing the theme here. We want everybody to continue to feel like a united community and to feel like this transition is a really positive one. And so we have 2 things that we're focusing on in terms of strategic initiatives this year. First, making sure that regardless of which school our students are at, they have a sense of both school communities. We are leveraging our recorded morning announcements, which we've just been able to get back up and running this week. The hope is that we're going to get announcements from both buildings. So we've been integrating some early math announcements from Tara Washburn, and we've had our middle schoolers doing some announcements as well about some cultural celebrations. And we want to make sure that we're leveraging those. We also are continuing to plan events between October and June that span both campuses and welcome all of our students, staff, and family to attend. And then, of course, we're also concerned about our teacher health. I've had the privilege of talking to a lot of principals who've done this split campus thing in other places. And what we know is that it's critical for staff to maintain connection. So we are making sure to provide monthly opportunities for staff to connect off campus, both professionally, and we're also really making sure to create more outside of school staff fun opportunities for people to participate in. And with that, I will stop sharing and take any questions.
Thank you, Jamie. Questions from the subcommittees? Sarah, do you have a question or just walking? Okay. Okay. Thank you, Jamie.
That was easy.
Yeah. Isn't that nice when things are easy?
It
You
is.
deserve easy tonight. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Have a good night, Jamie. Now, I think many folks may want to step away at this point. The Finance Subcommittee has some additional business to keep going on, so everyone's welcome to stay, but we are going to turn over to the Finance Subcommittee. Suzanne, is there any closing remarks we want to make on the
Well,
SIPs?
I just from curriculum standpoint, I just want to give a big shout out to OTL, Jody and Michelle and Gabe. I thought the presentations were so focused, and they did it within the allotted time. So kudos to them. I love hearing about PLCs and collaboration and professional development. So just a real shout out to OTL for giving the template, I think, that really helped us to stay focused on what the challenges are.
Yeah, agreed. Carolyn?
Thanks. Yeah, that was super interesting. So will there be, and I was interested to hear that there seems to be sort of like a nebulous shared question about the discretionary spending and SIPs and budget impact. So what will be the follow-up to these presentations, each of which was meaty and deserving of follow-up on their own, but also maybe
from the
as a
budgetary perspective, which is I think your question, like for now, I think we need to docket that for a future conversation to explore
yeah.
a little bit, and we will talk more about the budget book and the practice. So I think we need to come as a subcommittee together with Susan and the team to talk about, again, that sort of, as you described it, nebulous question.
Great. I'd love that to happen.
Okay. I also want to second what you said, Suzanne, is thanks to everyone. And I thought the presentations were great. And although it was a huge, overwhelming session, I actually loved listening to them back to back to back, because you get such a sense of the overlaps in the symphony and just all the different things that are happening. It's very nice. So.
And kudos to you, Mariah, for keeping us on track. So thank you.
Well, we're running late now. We're 5 minutes off schedule, so
we won't talk anymore. But
that's right. Now we turn to the finance business. So I'll say thank you to everyone, and anyone who wants to step away, go for it. Quickly, and I don't think we're going to get through all of our finance things much, though I wanted to. The first item that we're going to take as a finance subcommittee is gift acceptance. There were 2 gifts for $250 each from Kaso Okujo and Morgan and Rita Daly. The first from Kaso Okujo to Brookline High School for the Outstanding Speaker Series, and Morgan and Rita Daly to BASE. So those are very generous. And can I get a motion for acceptance?
So moved.
Thank you. And I'll take Carolyn as a second. Sarah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Val?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you. And thank you to the donors again. The next item, and we're doing a little bit of a change in practice, which is exciting. This is not a request for grant acceptance, but a request for grant application approval. And the good thing about this is this avoids the scenario that perhaps staff might submit a grant that then school committee later on does not want to accept. And so nothing is accepted or nothing is submitted without having this sort of pre-step. So there's 2 grants that are under consideration. And I just want to say that this is actually a really big deal, because getting all of the paperwork together to this point to be able to put together an explanation of what you're applying for before the due date it's a lot. So I'm grateful to that. So the first one is to DESE for $50,000. And Gabe, do you want to give a quick 15-second overview of what's written here?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So this is primarily driven by Mindy Paulo, our director of EL, pre-K to 12, and essentially it's to improve curriculum. We had a work for our program review a few years ago, and one of the findings was that we needed to kind of boost our curriculum. That's been challenging to do from a financial standpoint. And actually our Title III money, which funds a lot of EL support, has gone down in recent years through to the way the federal government calculates that funding. And so this would be a really good boost. It's a kind of unique one-time opportunity to work with the consultant who did our review. She's been a really great support, and then support teachers to develop that curriculum alongside the consultant.
Great. So is this a new program or just new to Brookline applying for it?
It would be as far as I know, it's a new funding source for us to take advantage of. They have a few different categories, and we're not eligible for most of the categories, but this curriculum development category we are eligible for.
Okay. And is 50,000 the max we can apply for?
No, they actually have not stated a maximum, which is highly unusual for DESE.
Yeah.
But Mindy did some rough math, And she thinks that's what it would take for the right team and in collaboration with the consultant.
Okay, so they're aiming at that because they think it's like the sweet spot of.
Yeah, essentially it's enough money to support us, but also not so much that we can't actually use it. We have to acknowledge staff capacity.
Okay. Thank you for that. Are there any questions on this one before we move to the next one? The next one it's for NOAA, National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, which is a federal grant, and it's $10,000. Gabe, do you want to give another 15-second overview? And when you do you mind talking specifically? Because my question was, what is the specific under or historically marginalized populations that this will be supporting? Because I don't think it was articulated in the materials.
Yeah, so this is really an individual grant. So Victoria Kavanaugh applied for a grant last year through NOAA. This is a little bit of a different structure that they're offering this year. So it's for her as an individual teacher to support her learning. And from my conversations with her, I think really it's she's a teacher at FRR, and so it's a combination of students in the Steps to Success program, right, who live in public housing, but also students in the TLC who sometimes overlap. So she's really looking at the students in her class and kind of the direct support for her. And she teaches all 7th graders science at FRR.
So it says she's math. Is she not math? She's science?
I'm sorry, math. Yes.
Okay.
I'm just thinking about Noah and
yeah. I see.
What is the TLC?
It's the Therapeutic Learning Center. So it's a specialized program at FRR. It's Excel at the high school, basically.
And you said that she applies individually, but it still goes to the district. The funds are awarded to the district, not to the individual.
So yeah, they would go through the district for her to access.
Okay. Okay. Is there a motion for approval of submission? Grant submission?
I'll move.
Okay, I'll second. Sarah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Val?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes, and thank you so much, Gabe. These both look great.
And I vote yes as well. And I want to say thanks to Gabe and thanks to Susan for getting us ahead of the curve. I think this is a great opportunity for handling grants better. So thank you for that. The next item that is on our agenda is position, and it says position approvals, but when Susan and I regrouped after our August meeting, one of the things that was a question at that point was, is this approval or notification? And although this says approval, I believe Susan and I agreed this is actually notification because as we heard a week or two ago, HR is doing an amazing job of accelerating the hiring cycle to allow the district to be more competitive in its hiring. So if this was an approval, then we would have an issue with retaining that accelerated hiring pace that is desirable. So this is actually a notification. And what we talked about is that this isn't really necessarily about any one position. This is really about a trend of, this is what Susan and I were talking about. It's really about looking at a trend. So if we see that, there's something going on, we have the opportunity to discuss trends as opposed to approving or disapproving any individual positions. So I think that's a way for us to provide input and public transparency on hiring while also honoring and appreciating the work being done to actually hire people. Susan, did I accurately capture that? She's on mute, so I'm going to say that she probably agrees with me that I did.
This seems to have updated, Mariah, the extended date.
Did it? And I didn't get the chance. I have just been so busy. I didn't get the chance to look at it all in detail. I thought that the early childhood was still at 4, but now yeah, it is still at 4. So it didn't update.
And one of the items that we added was funding type, so that if you look second column from the left, funding type now tells you where the source of the expense is being charged. So at times it's going to be grants, and in the case of BEEP, it would be through the revolving fund. And so now you'll have a better understanding of, how the position will be paid for. Not only where the funding source is located, but also the fund type. So we thought that would be helpful. Also,
the
I
oh,
think
sorry,
that's
go
what
ahead.
was updated. No, I'm sorry. I think that's what was updated, Mariah, that I was looking at was the funding source. I think it
Oh,
said
okay.
it said
Yes,
general
yes.
fund last time.
The other thing that I think we actually, I don't know that this captures all the things we talked about, Susan, because I think we talked about having like I'll have to go back, but there was like a question of like showing the real cost, because if for example, like the first row, that one, as I understood our conversation from the other day, but we're still working this out, would have been like a 0, because it truly is like it's a net neutral. So even though it technically costs 80,000, it's still zeroed out because it's just shifting one place to the other. Whereas like row 3, that actually is an additional cost.
okay.
Yeah.
I missed it once, but yes, I can certainly make that adjustment. So if it's what we're calling one a realignment, so if we're realigning a
Yeah.
position from one school to the next, then I guess it's an in and out scenario versus a new position that's requiring new funding, as in the early childhood, which should be one word, aids would be new, as
Right.
the grant funded ones. So, okay, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Right, sorry. Yeah, I can update that for the next iteration. Also, I left it as approvals because these are the ones that were approved, but if that makes it confusing, I can just say new position PCN report.
Yeah, maybe report is a good word, because yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yep.
Like there's no vote happening here. We're not approving like we were the other things.
No, these are the ones that were approved since each in between or like our August meeting, these were the ones that had been approved internally. And then these are the ones for the September meeting, i.e. tonight.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing Susan and I talked about was basically so there would be like the most recent month sort of at the top, although right now it's not the top yet, but then the year-to-date cumulative would sort of queue up, so anyone who wants to know would be able to see the whole annual position in one. You don't have to go back and like find all the documents. It would just be a year-to-date document.
And some of these, will not be required moving forward, right? Some of this is, again, around our developing resource acumen within our organization. And so, for example, as we put the budget together, hopefully this year, for those positions that are associated with students rising, let's say, up to the high school, we would do that as the natural part of the development process. And so therefore, they'd already be there and not then have to be shifted. So but there's a lot of learning, even as we look at the nature of some of these requests, and then how can we improve our practice and continue to provide, transparency in how we manage our resources. When folks from the public will look at our budget document and they'll try to compare, what we approved last year, and what the numbers will look like when I present them this year. Well, this helps people to understand there's a lot of changes that happen in between planning and implementation. And so when I present the budget, I will provide information on what the plan actually is, and then our best understanding of what it will look like in the upcoming year. So this helps to kind of bridge the gap, so people understand throughout this year that when they look at our budget next year, that there has been a lot of adjustments that need to be made, because we're trying to focus on providing programming in real time to students as they're presenting their needs to us. So
Before I call on you, Carolyn, I want to ask one question. So there was two $44,000 positions charged to the IDEA grant for starting in September. Was the IDEA grant under allocated before, or what was shifted off of IDA EA or to make room for those two positions?
I have not seen the final version of the grant as it was written, so I can't necessarily answer that directly. But I did ask Deputy Superintendent O'Connell if there were additional resources allocated to us this year, and she said that there had been. So I'm looking forward to seeing the final version of the grant and hope in time for the quarterly report, so we should be able to see it more clearly then.
Okay, thank you. Carolyn, you had a question?
Yeah, it's sort of a statement just to sort of build on what Susan was saying about what is helpful about this. I agree, it is helpful. And to extend where I think you were going, Mariah, and as someone who is not nearly as in the weeds or as familiar with all of this, which would be the vast majority of the public, and with respect to how useful this is and will be and can be for the public, I would agree with the notion of somehow indicating, you know, like just basically, did this cost us more than we thought it was going to? And then I think that'll also kind of be informative to the question that I guess is sort of continues to be a question of whether we hold staff reserve funds. So so that would be helpful for me as like a dummy to understand that. And I think that's exactly the kind of question that the public has. Like, did we spend more than we thought we were going to? And it looks here we didn't, but it's super interesting to know how all of these shifts happen within the budget.
Yeah. And I think also changing the column that now says cost to net cost.
Yes.
Yep. Makes sense why some are zero, right? As opposed to additional costs. I think that will also help people understand.
Yes.
Yep.
That's great. Okay, so thank you, Susan. And I think what we're going to do is not do the guidelines tonight because we're already 5 minutes past the hour, and that should be a more extensive conversation. What I would like, I only received comments from Carolyn. So so I think maybe what we really need to do is I would hopefully get some more comments from other members. So Betsy, maybe if you can also ask other members to comment on the draft that was circulated, that would be really helpful. And then we can maybe just take it up next week at full school committee to try and maintain our rhythm, even though we are like, I would have loved to have it come to finance. I just don't want us to lose a whole month on this. So, okay. So we'll do that. And I think that's it for tonight, right, Betsy? We covered everything except for guidelines.
That's correct. We covered everything.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Betsy.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, Susan. Bye.
Thanks, Susan.